All right, Klim, you ready to rock?
I'm ready to roll.
Give me a minute. All right. And without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, how you doing, everybody? And welcome to the Moffett on the Mic radio show. We are live on the A1 Sports Network, courtesy of StreamYard. I am Craig Moffett, and this show would not be complete without the production stylings of Elijah Vera Tucker himself, Chris Klim.
What's going on, Craig?
It's been a while, man.
It has been a while, yes. It's been a while, but I think well worth it after the games we saw this past week.
Oh, my God. I mean, the games were by far the best, some of the best I've ever seen. But the good news about today is it is Mega Guest Monday right here on Moffett on the Mic. And this is what happens when I let Klim have a sabbatical. He always comes through in big spots, and I have to give him props because I texted him. Well, let me backtrack. See, I texted him a week ago, never got back to me, right? So I thought he moved on to greener pastures, no pun intended. And then I'm like, I just emailed him out of the blue on Sunday, and I'm like, dude, are we doing a show or what? And he's like, oh yeah, sorry, man. I was working. I was really busy, right? So then your text was funny because you just slip it in at the end that, oh yeah, I got Taylor to come on, right? No big fanfare, no big, hey man, check it out. I got so-and-so coming on the show. It's going to be great. He just slips it in like really, really like nonchalantly. So I'm like, okay, now I'm looking forward to tomorrow. So Mega Guest Monday does not disappoint because Klim always comes through. And we have two guests coming on the show tonight. In about 10 minutes, we'll be joined by, she is number one on our speed dial when we want to make fun of Urban Meyer at his expense. We are talking about, of course, 1010XL sports reporter and co-host of the Helmets and Heels show every Tuesday night from 6 to 8. The one and only Taylor Dahl will join us. We're going to be talking some Jags football. We'll get into a little bit of NFL playoffs with her as well. And at 8:15, Klim, we try to console one of our favorites, a big-time Buffalo Bills fan. He's been on our show multiple times. He is the co-host of the Billieve Podcast. He has the greatest voice ever for radio or anything. And I am talking about, of course, the one and only Jamie D'Amico will join us, and we'll get into last night's game, which was absolutely insane. I won't really go through all the details. If you didn't see it, watch the highlights on YouTube because I'm telling you right now, the game was insane. And what made that game insane also was Nance and Romo did such a good job calling it. Tony Romo is one of the best color commentators, I think, in NFL history, as far as I'm concerned. He is
really good.
He gets really, really into the games, and that's what you like to hear out of color commentators. Like, you want to see them get so into the games, and he was into it. So was Nance. Like, I've never seen Nance so animated for a game before. I mean,
it was just so good. But that's the thing, though. Like you just mentioned, like, you never seen Jim Nance act like that for a game, let alone how long has Jim Nance been calling games for. And this arguably has been dubbed the greatest NFL game of all, one of the greatest NFL games of all time.
So we got a lot to do, but I'm going to just nip this in the bud right now. Klim and I talked about it before because I thought it was absolutely ridiculous how this was apparently a huge thing all over sports radio. So I'm going to put this baby to bed. You don't change the rules in overtime.
Yes.
All the Bills fans who are complaining, all the sports fans who are complaining about the game yesterday, I'm sorry, but you don't change the rules of overtime because you lost. That's it. Nothing more, nothing less. You're not going to sell me on this. I don't want to hear from Tiki and Tierney on it. I don't want to hear from Evan and Carton about it. I don't want to hear any of it. Okay? It's very simple. Buffalo had a chance to win that game in the fourth quarter after Josh Allen threw an incredible touchdown to Gabriel Davis. Okay? What happened? Buffalo's defense completely collapsed. That's it. That's the end of the story right there. They left Kelsey wide open when you shouldn't have left him wide open. You got Harrison Butker, who's been pretty automatic all season, and he kicks a field goal, game over, goes to overtime. That's on you. That's not on the overtime rules. That's on the Buffalo Bills. And the thing is, the Buffalo Bills, they've been such a great franchise over the last few years, but man, talk about some heartache, Klim. You're talking about a team that went to 4 straight Super Bowls and lost them all. And then they played the Kansas City Chiefs 2 years in a row. Last year was in the AFC Championship game. And then this year, and they lose in these gut-wrenching fashions.
It was bad. Like, I felt so bad for them. I mean, like, granted, like, as Jet fans, we shouldn't feel bad for the Bills at all.
They're a New York team. You kind of feel like you feel obligated to root for them when your team is not in the playoffs.
I generally have no problems with the Bills. Josh Allen is probably my favorite player in the NFL right now. That's not a Jet. Like, just the way he plays and everything. And, like, you watch that game, and, like, Josh Allen did such a good job commanding the team, getting them in the game. 201 yards by Gabriel Davis. Let's not just, like, also blow that aside. Like, what the hell happened there? Like, but again, like you mentioned with the playoffs, if you don't let it come down. There's nothing wrong with the playoff rules, the overtime rules. There's nothing wrong with them at all.
It's just that people think that's like, well, the Bills should get another chance. No, if the rules are, if Kansas City scores a touchdown, game over.
Like, if you have a problem with it, don't let it get that close. Don't let it go to overtime. If you have a problem with it, don't. It's as simple as that. And even so, and it's not like, like the Bills. I mean, the Chiefs, like, took a few plays, or like they converted on a few fourth downs on that drive. They marched right down the field. Like, there was just no hope for that Bills defense. Unfortunately, there was just no hope, and that's what happens. And like you mentioned, don't let it happen. You had 13 seconds to stop Patrick Mahomes, and you were covering the end zone. What the hell are you covering the end zone for? You know they're going to pass short to Kelsey and Tyreek, and that's exactly what they did. Tyreek Hill, 15, 20-yard play, bam, timeout. Then what happens next? Travis Kelsey wide open for another 20 yards. Set him right up for Harrison Butker. Don't let it happen if you're going to complain.
And I agree. And the thing is, like, listen, this is it. Buffalo got screwed because of the overtime rules, and if we had gotten a shot, no, I don't want to hear it. Yeah. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear the debate, the ridiculous debates on sports radio about it. The fact is, Buffalo lost. And the thing that I hate the most about games like this is the only thing I hate about games like this, is that the fans get mad when the rules apply to them or don't apply to them. Okay, it's very easy to bitch and complain about the rules when they work against you. It's very easy to sit there on your social media platforms and say, "Oh, they got to change the OT rules. This is ridiculous. This is insane. Buffalo should have got an opportunity and everything." No, they shouldn't have. They gave up a touchdown. Game over. Have a nice day, and that's it. And if Buffalo really had the show, if Buffalo really wanted that game, then they would have had tighter defense on Travis Kelsey, not let him catch a huge pass that puts them in the field goal range.
Exactly. Look, as great as the Bills played throughout that whole game, the last 13 seconds, they blew it. And then in overtime, they also blew it.
Yeah, and I totally agree. And I'm not going to sit here and listen to Bills fans or sports fans in general complain about the rules. I'm tired of people complaining about the rules.
Like, I get it. You're angry. Understandably, you're angry. You were that close. And I would be angry too. But there's no reason to change the rules in overtime. There really is not. There's no problem.
There isn't. But like I said, I'm so tired of hearing it. Like, I'm just so tired of, like, everybody complaining, everybody whining when their team loses. Okay, the fact is that the rules are fine. There's nothing wrong with them. Buffalo had a golden opportunity to win that game after they threw that touchdown, and all they had to do was prevent Patrick Mahomes from getting into field goal range, and they couldn't do it. They couldn't do it, especially when you have the best defense in the NFL. You couldn't do it. So that's the bigger letdown. It's not the fact that, the Bills choked it away. It was the fact that, in some ways, the defense was so bad that the defense didn't really play that well the whole game. And I don't know if it was a case of they were just gassed. They seemed pretty healthy to me on the field. Mm-hmm. So what was the problem? Because they had no answer for Tyreek Hill. They had no answer for Patrick Mahomes. They had no answer for Travis Kelsey. And again, when you needed them to come up in a big spot, they didn't. And you can't escape that reality.
You can't. You really can't. And like I said, they were covering the end zone like Patrick Mahomes was going to throw the ball 75 yards for a touchdown. That clearly wasn't the case. And Andy Reid and Eric Bieniemy chalked up the 2 perfect plays to do it. They threw a little quick pass right to Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill scattered for 15, 20 yards.
Mm-hmm.
And then they did the same thing with Travis Kelce. Kelce was wide open, goes for another 20 yards. Within 13 seconds, and they were in field goal range. And like you said, an easy chip shot for Harrison Butker.
Yeah, who's been an automatic kicker all season long.
Exactly. It was they just unfortunately
and that on no one else but the Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills did not have a good defensive game plan to end that game. They didn't realize I don't know if they figured they had the game won. I have no idea. I'm not saying they quit. I wouldn't go that far.
No, they definitely didn't quit.
They play hard for McDermott. I mean, McDermott's a terrific coach. Like he's a fantastic coach. But I mean, I questioned the game plan at the very end of the game.
Yeah, it
was just a very odd game plan, especially against Pat Mahomes. It's like what we used to say about Tom Brady. It's like you don't want to put the ball in Tom Brady's hand, even if there's 15 seconds left in the game. You want to make sure he never steps on that field,
right?
To try to lead you to a comeback. Okay.
Like they should have had. In reality, I mean, yeah, it's real easy to be a Monday morning quarterback and look at it in the hindsight, but they should have had guys staged in the middle. They weren't going to go deep with 13 seconds left. They didn't have enough time to do that. Yeah. You know, they were obviously going to go short, and Tyreek Hill was wide open, and so was Kelce. And they failed to cover them both. They were both wide open.
I mean, that was just an insane 2 minutes, though, I will say.
Oh, my God, man. I'm so happy I caught the last 2 minutes of that because
I've seen in football because I've never seen a game end like that before. Just
we watched
in the last 2 minutes of the fourth quarter.
Yeah, it was insane. And Taylor is here.
All right, put her through. Joining us as always, again, as we always say, she is number one on our speed dial when we want to make fun of Urban Meyer at his expense. She's one of our faves. She is the one and only Taylor Dahl. Thank you on such short notice for coming on the show to hang out with us.
Yeah, no problem, guys. Thanks for having me again.
All right, so was the Josh Lambo thing like the nail in the coffin for Urban, or was this something that was maybe more after the fact? Like the Cons had pretty much made up their mind about Urban after the season was over, but this Josh Lambo thing just kind of put the gears in motion a lot quicker than originally anticipated.
Yeah, I think it was just one of those moments where Shad, he couldn't get out of that one. It was one thing after another, and we've talked about it on here before. I mean, it was just literally every week it was something with Urban Meyer. And Shad told Urban Meyer when the whole situation happened when he didn't fly back with the team and the whole video got released, which like a lot of people are like, whatever he does on his personal time, it shouldn't affect him as a coach. But what really like more hit for a lot of people when it came to like the media and all of us following him was the fact that he wasn't on the plane. Like, you just lost. You got up on the podium and said, I'm heartbroken for these guys. Like, you know, let's just keep grinding was his word. And then he was grinding that night. But it was just one of those situations where he was like just BSing, which we've seen now, like he kind of BS'd his way through everything. But Shad told him at that point, like, you have to earn my trust back. Pretty much like giving him an ultimatum. Like, if anything else happens, I can't defend you anymore. And I think it got to that point. Like, I don't think if that situation was solely happening, like if Lambo came out at that point and the Jags had like 7 wins and they looked like they were like starting to figure stuff out, I don't think that it would have been what it is. But the fact that all of these other things kind of piled up and kept piling up, and the Jags weren't losing, and honestly, Trevor was getting worse, the team was getting worse, they were like, okay, it's time. Like, let's cut the ties right now. Try to finish the season on some sort of high note and move on, because it was progressively getting worse throughout the year.
No, it definitely was. And like you said, we've talked about it time and time again on the show. And I think me and you both agreed that Urban Meyer wouldn't last. He would get fired at the end of the season. Little did we know he'd get fired mid-season. So it was just like the writing was on the wall. It really was from the get-go. It's like, this guy has been nothing but a jackass since the beginning. Failed after, like you mentioned, everything that came around for him. He was just messed up everything. And like Craig said, I think probably the Lambo thing was the thing that sent the Cons over the top.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely, and who even knows, because there was also allegations after that, like Lambo kind of made it up.
Uh-oh, did we lose Taylor?
No, I hope not. It's not me this time, see?
Yeah. That's it. Let's see.
Ugh.
All right. There we go.
Sorry, it was. I don't know if it's mine. I'm guessing. Hold on. All right. Yeah. So I think that like there was rumors that it was kind of exaggerated a little bit, but I think, like I said, the bottom line was that like everything was getting worse, and then now there's this one more thing that it's like Shad was tired of defending a man who was not winning football games.
Right. Early reports. I know they had started interviewing guys early. They interviewed Doug Peterson, interviewed Jim Caldwell. But I read something the other day that a lot of the reasons why they're having a hard time attracting candidates to the team is because of GM Trent Baalke. And the early report is that he wants to hire Colts defensive coordinator Matt Eberflus as the next head coach. Besides Trevor Lawrence, what else is there to sell to coaches in Jacksonville?
I'm honestly not really sure, and we've had that conversation a lot here on our show, Helmets and Heels. We're like, look, they have to redo everything, and a coach that comes to Jacksonville, because there was kind of everyone was arguing like, hey, what is the most attractive coaching job that opened? And I'm sure you guys were having the same conversation, and like everybody starts having this conversation where it's like, hey, you know, the Bears opened up, and then Miami surprisingly opened up, and all of these jobs started popping up. And like we were even having the conversation ourselves, like what actually makes people want to come here? Like Trevor Lawrence, yeah, but to be honest with you, Trevor didn't have a great year. Like you saw glimpses. But there was also, like I said, by the end of the year, other than the Colts may have saved that Colts game, may have saved a little bit of it because people are like, okay, like he didn't completely forget everything that he knew in college. But I can't name anything else. Like money, they have a lot of money. They have the first draft pick. And I feel like I'm repeating myself from last year, like saying the same exact thing, except now you have Trevor Lawrence. So I think that's their big selling point right now. And there is a lot of people, I mean, confirmed reports that certain people do not want to work with Trent Baalke. The most recent one I've heard is because two of them, obviously Byron Leftwich is Jags.
Oh. Man, it was so close. It's like a cliffhanger.
I know. Got this close. This close.
Look,
it's not me. So you could say it's not me this time.
That's okay.
Sorry. Let me like exit out real quick and get back on to see if I can get a better signal.
Okay, no problem.
Sorry.
All right, so we'll be back with Taylor Dahl in a couple minutes. She's going to check the feed on her end. But, you know, again, that was one of the things with the Jaguars was about Trent Baalke. It was that nobody wants to work with this guy because he's just a terrible general manager. Yeah. And, I mean, he might even be a lame duck general manager. That could be the other reason why nobody wants to work with him because they think he could get fired in a year. And then
that's
what happens?
True. Yeah. That? You know, because when in reality, like Taylor said, like the Jacksonville Jaguars, it should be a pretty attractive job because, like she said, you got Trevor Lawrence, you got the first overall pick this year. You know, like she said last year, like it was a very attractive job last year, and but like you're coming into this year, it's like it should be, but it's really not. You're like what is it? And like you mentioned, maybe it's Trent Baalke as the GM. People don't want to work with him, you know, and especially what we just saw out of the garbage fire that was Urban Meyer. It's like, what's going? Do I really want to go and coach the Jaguars right now?
And the thing is, but at the same time, it is Trevor Lawrence, and Trevor Lawrence is still a big selling card for them right now. That's they can play. That's the big card that they can play. You know, he's a once in generational prospect. Coaches are going to want to work with him. It might behoove the Jaguars to hire an offensive-minded coach and a defensive one because they'll work with him. But I also think that the Jaguars may want to go down the road that the Jets went down last year and invest in offense.
Yeah.
Get him protection. You're going to lose a couple of linemen this year. Cam Robinson's a free agent. Andrew Norwell's a free agent. That's a third of your line right there. Back?
Yes.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay. Sorry, guys. I'm not sure what was going on. So what was I saying? Rumors. So obviously Byron Leftwich, he's one of the ones that a lot of Jags fans really want. And you really hear the only two places I really hear his name is Chicago and Jacksonville. I'm not completely sold on Byron. I have a lot of questions, but a lot of people that know more than I do about a coaching search have approved. But apparently he is one that has said he would work with Trent Baalke. Shall he be hired? So it's a win-lose for Jags because the Jags fans, obviously, I'm sure you guys saw the like clown movement that happened. Like they do not want Trent Baalke here whatsoever. So it's kind of odd because they want Byron, but if Byron comes, that potentially means Trent Baalke staying. Then there's other names that are reportedly have been like, no way, not happening. Nathaniel Hackett apparently is one of them that said, I'm not coming there if Trent Baalke's there. So it's just, there's a lot of questions, and it surrounds the same things that the Jags constantly have issues with, and it's the higher up. And to me personally, that even comes from Shad Khan. Like, I mean, since Shad Khan's been here, there's been a lot of mistakes from the top, and the man does a million different things. He has all sorts of businesses. He has soccer clubs. He does a lot. So all his focus cannot always be on the Jaguars. So that's why I think that they need to get like that in between, like VP type position that they try to do with Coughlin. The problem is they gave Coughlin everything. They're like, hey, be this and be a coach and do this. They need somebody between Shad and a coach to try to figure out how to help the Jags, because Shad doesn't know football, so he can't do anything on that level. And then a lot of the coaches they're looking to bringing in are going to be first-time head coaches. So it's another experiment.
You know, in like Craig mentioned, and like Hughes mentioned, Matt Eberflus is a potential candidate, and you said you really didn't like the idea of Byron Leftwich. Who do you think who would you like as someone who covers the Jaguars to coach this team next?
Yeah, and like Eberflus, that one was a weird one for me. I think more of I just didn't know enough. We had Sean Salisbury, like he used to be like a, kind of backup in the league forever, but he works in Houston. And the three guys he named immediately were Byron, Dabble, and Todd Bowles, which kind of surprised me because I haven't heard a lot of people, like a ton of people, talk about Bowles. He's gotten a couple of interviews, but it hasn't been anything like, yes, go get this guy. And he was really gung ho about that. But I honestly am not sure for the Jags. I've been still trying to figure out like what exactly they need, because at first my initial reaction was like, I don't want a defensive coach, because they need somebody who's going to build Trevor. They need somebody who's going to be able to develop him. They need somebody who's going to be able to like actually call plays efficiently and scheme around Trevor. So to me, my go-to was an offensive minded guy. I also wanted somebody who had some head coaching experience, at least at some point. But it looks like it's going to be kind of hard to get all of those things that I want. And also from what I've heard is like, that's another thing Sean Salisbury said was like, hey, like a lot of people kind of nix the defensive coach right away if they want to build a quarterback. And he's like, but what you got to like realize is sometimes those defensive coaches will bring like the strongest head coach mind, like their OC is going to be the guy because they're the defensive guy. So they're going to have a guy that's going to play call, and he's not going to have to take on that responsibility, so we can focus on a lot of other things. So I'm still like, there's a lot of questions about who I want the Jags to take. And obviously the decision has to be made relatively soon. We have the Pro Bowl in not too long, so you've got to start figuring some sort of stuff out. And especially if that potentially means letting go of Baalke.
Yeah. From a Jets perspective, first of all, don't go after Todd Bowles. I think me and Craig can both attest to saying don't go after Todd Bowles.
If you want press conferences where you're watching paint dry, Todd Bowles is your man. I've never seen a guy so monotoned on everything. It was just bad. Like it's just, coaching aside, I mean, he wasn't the greatest coach, and I mean, you could blame it on the lack of talent all you want, but I'm also a firm believer that sometimes you have to take what you can get, and it's almost like making chicken salad out of chicken shit.
Yeah.
And so I think good coaches do that. And I think more times than not, Todd Bowles did not have those guys prepared for games at all.
Yeah. I think that's why I was surprised, because the Jets fans that I do know were always like, no, like, what are you talking about? So, like, don't do it. And I'm like, I'm telling like everybody in the league, like, you're not hearing one person try to call Matt Nagy. Like, I don't have to tell you, no, don't do it. Like, it's not going to happen. It's fine.
So from you have your finger on the pulse of the Jaguars nation. What's the level of concern right now with Trevor? Do they seem really concerned that Urban Meyer might have messed him up pretty bad, or do they think it's just kind of like a blip on the radar and then a new coach might come in and make him a better quarterback? And like now that Urban's gone, like a lot of the pressure's off too at the same time.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I think that there was a point in probably the weeks like 14, 15, 16, where it was starting to become a legitimate question of, hey, like, is this, has this gone on too?
I wasn't impressed.
Because it wasn't like we were just saying, hey, he's going to be good. Like, they were saying, like, he's generational. Like, there was a big gap in between.
Can't miss prospect and everything.
Yeah, like, so you're tossing all those words out there, and nobody expected, like, a 10-11 win season either. The Jags' expectations were already low because we knew the kind of things that we had on this roster. We knew that with Urban Meyer was a first-time head coach trying to figure stuff out. We knew there was a lot of issues. So most people were like, hey, we'll be happy with, like, 5, 6, 7 wins. Like, it was that. Like, that. It was already, like, a mediocre, hoping maybe below mediocre that they were hoping for. But there was definitely points when questions started to arise from people, like when you would truly come on and quarterback guys would come on. We have this guy here in Jacksonville named Denny Thompson, and he runs a quarterback camp here. And he trains a lot of guys, mainly college. So like Carson Beck at Georgia, he works with him. Ian Book, he worked with him. A lot of like the bigger names, but in the offseason got some of the NFL guys will come, like Deshaun Watson, everything, came down and worked with him. And the moment that he said, I'm worried, like he is regressing, we all kind of held our breath for a little while. We were like, oh, gosh, here we go. Like another Jacksonville story of like messy. And it's not even like it was Trevor's fault because it was just everything around him. Like there were moments where we're like, he's trying so hard to succeed. And it's just like, nobody's helping. They had the most drop passes in the league, 39 drop passes by the Jags receivers. And I'm like, you can't win games unless you're Tom Brady. Like you're not going to win games with that. But I think there was like a little revitalization when they played the Colts because number one, they thought they were going to just get boat raced. Everybody in the NFL did. Like every mock of like what could potentially happen in the playoffs was like, well, for this team to get in, these 3 things need to happen, and the Jags aren't winning. So like, don't even think about that first one. These other 2 need to happen. And then when that happened, and it was like not good. It wasn't like a lucky like the Bills game. The Jags beat the Bills somehow, and it wasn't because Trevor. It was because the defense played really well. This Colts game wasn't that. Like Trevor looked really good. He looked like he actually was like comfortable back there. He wasn't throwing late, which started to happen. Little things that Trevor never did in college mid-season started to really show up, and that people were asking questions like, which rightfully so, but people were like, hey, was he just surrounded by so much talent there that it was easy? And we started to question a lot of things. So I do think that there was not panic button, but a little bit of breath holding for a few weeks. And then that last week kind of said, okay, like he's there. He's in there. We just got to find a guy and give him weapons.
Now the Jaguars do hold the first overall pick again. And considering that, you got to help Trevor Lawrence in a way, do you see the Jaguars drafting a guy like Aiden Hutchinson or Thibodeau, or do you see them potentially drafting a guy like Evan Neal to help out on that offensive line?
Yeah, and that's what obviously we've kind of been, unfortunately, talking about mock drafts a lot sooner than a lot of other teams have been talking about mock drafts. And
we're all in the same boat.
Yeah, we're like, it's not another year.
Jets fans started talking about mock drafts after week 1.
You're like, it's time.
Yeah.
That's what we tried to hold off as long as possible, but I think it was literally around week 6 we were like, okay, like we have to start discussing a little bit. It never hurts though to have a guy like Aiden Hutchinson, and so I think there's questions there of like, is it worth it? But then the Jags look at their roster and they're like, they need weapons so bad. They also need certain pieces of the line. The Jags have their left side is fine. Like the left side of the line, fine, great, like even above average. Like there's.
Oh no, we lost her again. Oh no.
It's always, I would say, it's always when she's like right in there, like ready to give it all to us. It's just like, oh.
She's like, yeah, we're like, right.
Sorry guys, I don't know why this thing keeps cutting out.
Oh, we were just saying, like, it's like every time you're on a roll, it's like
it cuts up.
And it leaves it like frozen in time, like so.
It's like wants to hold on to that moment. Yeah. Now, and I keep losing my train of thought every time that happens too. What was I saying?
You were talking about the left side of the line.
So they have questions because you're obviously like, you need receivers, you need to fix the right side of the line, is what I was saying. The left side is good, if not like pretty good. There's some things over there. Walker Little started to progress a lot. They're not quite sure what to do with him, but the right side is just atrocious. Jawan Taylor is awful, and they have to fix some pieces. So like you said, like you could go offensive lineman and then people may call you crazy, but like to me, I just want the Jags to get what they actually need. Like stop wasting picks on guys you don't need. Like you have your quarterback now, go protect your quarterback and give them something to throw to, or somebody to throw to. And I think a lot of the Jags fans, even Jags media, are like, I wish someone wanted to trade up. Like I wish we could like bundle some stuff up and make a trade and trade back and give someone that. I just don't know really if anybody in the draft is like, let me give up a whole lot to go get Aiden Hutchinson, because I think they also are looking at the Jags and being like, they don't really need him. So I'm not going to give a lot of my draft picks to trade up to a spot that this team doesn't even want this player.
And that's the thing, because while a lot of the mock drafts I've been seeing have Aiden Hutchinson and Kayvon Thibodeau 1-2, but lately I've seen the offensive linemen start to now get to the top spot with the Jaguars and others. Aiden Hutchinson and Kayvon Thibodeau are not considered like Lawrence Taylor in his prime, or any big time, any like Nick Bosa or anything like that. They could be very good. So that's where that could be part of the reason why teams aren't going to be eager to trade up with the Jaguars, because you can get any player at number one and it's still a solid pick.
Yeah.
It's not like Trevor Lawrence, which is like a can't miss, if you don't take him one overall, you're out of your mind.
Yeah. Well, and I think also like the playoffs, which that's about when it happens, when you start seeing the college playoffs, and then you'll see the Pro Bowl and things start to like shift around a lot there. Even after the playoff, I mean, Aiden Hutchinson was getting worked for a minute and everyone was like, oh, like Dean looked insane. Like I was seeing certain people on Twitter being like, I think Dean's better than Aiden Hutchinson. Like I would draft this guy over him. So I think we're going to see a lot of shifting the next month or so, to where possibly the options at the top may be more fitting for the Jags and it would make more sense. But right now, like I just don't see Aiden Hutchinson being the guy that they need to take one overall.
No, yeah, definitely. I was saying, no, even to go off of that, like maybe we don't really know who would take over first overall, but who do you think like the Jaguars are going to potentially, get in the free agency? I know it's still very, very early in determining any of this stuff, but like you mentioned, the Jaguars need a lot of help at wide receiver, So do you see them going after a big name wide receiver this offseason?
I hope so. What sucks is like the two that I think they really would have like gone after big time with Godwin and Gallup, and they both got injured, so I'm not quite sure. I like, what is it, ACL? Usually 8
to 12 months usually.
Yeah, so it's like potentially you could be getting Godwin back, like right off an ACL, which this is something also I was just reading in a old article about Trent Baalke from when he was in San Francisco, about how bad he drafted, and he never hit on one wide receiver from the entire time he was there. From 2011 to 2016, if you look at the receivers they were drafted, the one guy, I think it was like AJ Jenkins or something, who literally didn't catch a pass in the NFL, and he drafted him in the first round. He also, even just between 2011 and 2016 in the draft for San Francisco, drafted 7 guys who were coming off ACL tears. And then this last year for the Jags, he drafted 3. So he has something with ACL. So maybe he'll go after Godwin still, because that's like his thing. But I honestly thought it was those two. The other ones that I guess really stick out to me, Mike Williams, I just don't really know if the Jags, if that's the fitting type of receiver that the Jags need. It's definitely going to be an interesting. They're calling for A-Rob back here. I just don't think A-Rob will ever want to step foot back in Jacksonville, but especially with another quarterback like experiment. I think A-Rob's like, okay, I did it with Bortles, then I tried it with Trubisky, and then the Fields didn't work last year for me either. Like I think he wants some sort of like solid. He knows this like is a winning quarterback, and he can at least go like spend some of his career winning games and catching balls from somebody who has a name for themselves. But Jags are convinced he might come back for Trevor. Christian Kirk, I think, is a good one. But like you said, there's a lot of questions because who's going to be tagged? I mean, Devontae Adams, like that, anybody would die to have Devontae Adams. So it's going to be really interesting what happens with Aaron Rodgers and what happens with Adams, because a lot of people are saying they could tag him, but his tag will be like $19 million, and the Packers are already $45 million over cap. So It's going to be a kind of wild free agency just because there are a lot of teams who are going to have to make some moves, and there's going to be some crazy tags. There's a few guys off injury that we'd potentially probably want. I would love Michael Gallup, but I don't know if I want to sign a Michael Gallup off an injury. Like if you're trying to win now,
Right.
Taylor, one of the greatest football games ever was played last night between Buffalo and Kansas City. And a lot of the talk today has been about changing the overtime rules. Where do you stand on that subject?
Yeah, I saw you guys are having someone from like one of the Buffalo podcasts. And I feel so bad. Like I've watched some really bad football by my teams this year, and my heart broke for Buffalo last night. And I immediately tweeted it. I was like, that's crap. Like I thought it was crap. Like I do not think that you should let a coin toss like determine your overtime. And I get it. A lot of people are saying, they're like, well, the defense should have stopped them. I'm like, no, the defense is gassed. The defense is gassed by like the beginning of the fourth. And the announcers were even saying that. They were like, man, this defense, like both are worn out. Like how many, it was like 50 points within whatever minutes. It was insane. So you can't tell me that if Buffalo wouldn't have won the coin toss, that they probably would have driven right down to and scored. Like they would have gotten a touchdown. So it's hard to determine which way to go with it. But I will say, I don't like it. I don't think it's right. I don't think it's fair to not give each offense at least one shot with the ball. And people worry like, oh, well, it could go on forever because then what if they just keep scoring touchdowns? Well, do something like make them go for 2. Don't let them kick extra points. Like there's something you can do that makes it fair to like whatever guy yells heads isn't going to automatically have like the upper hand at getting the shot to win the game.
I was going to say, no, fair. It's definitely fair. I mean, me and Craig both. Unfortunately, I think this is the first time we've ever disagreed on something with you, but I mean, look, if the NFL would have ever changed the rules to be like the college rules, I don't think I would ever hate it. But me and Craig look at it as that, if people are gonna be mad about it, don't let it get to overtime.
I just think that people get more mad about it when the rules work against them.
Yeah.
That's kind of standing on that. And like I understand that Bills fans have every right to be upset and it's depressing. I mean, this is a franchise that went to 4 straight Super Bowls, lost them all. Mm-hmm. And then they went, they had that game, had it. Like, I mean, all they had to do was shut them down for just a few more seconds, and they would have probably won the game. And their defense let them down. And
like to me, it was just like both defenses let down though too, because it wasn't just the Bills defense. Kansas City let the Bills do it also. And like to me, like the NFL right now is just the league in general is adjusting so much. They've had so many rules now that cater to the quarterbacks and cater to the wide receivers and cater to big scoring games because that's what they want. But then you're telling me you're not going to cater to the offense when it comes to like an overtime. Mm-hmm. Especially like you have guys like Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen, like of course they're going to score when they need to score. You have Travis Kelce on one side and you have a defense that's like these guys are 350 pounds trying to go now to a 5th quarter. Mm-hmm. It's just that's my mindset is like it's shifting so much to the offense and then it stops there. And I don't even care if it happens the regular season because regular season games, they have the weird ties and crazy things happen. But like the postseason, I think they just need some sort of adjustment because especially now where we are, like when you have 2 quarterbacks and we see a lot of future with a lot of Joe Burrows and Mahomes and like these are our future guys and these guys are going to be scoring high 20s, 30s, 40s. That's just what it's going to be. So to me, it's a little odd that you're like, okay, well, the defense let this person score in the last second. So like, screw that team. And we're just going to let the other team win in overtime. But I get both sides. Like I really do. And I didn't care. I truly did not care who won that game because I like both of to me, I like both teams. I was like, cool. Like this is fun. I would watch this game for the Super Bowl again if I could. But I was just wanting a little more fairness because I know if it was the Bears, I would have been losing my mind. Like I would have been losing my mind.
All right, one last question for me that's not sports related. I saw on your Instagram page that you went to see the new Scream.
Yes.
Is it worth the price of admission?
Oh God, it was so good. And I'll backtrack a little bit because Scream is my all-time favorite movie. Like I am
really good. It is a very good horror movie. I mean,
I love it. And I mean like my mom it was a horror movie buff, so I watched horror movies like probably way younger than I actually should have. Like for my 7th birthday, I saw Scream 2 in theaters, and like that's been my life. So I was pumped, and I was also scared because when I saw the new Halloween in October, I was not impressed. I was very let down by the new Halloween, so I was like, please don't kill my love for Scream. And it was so good. Like just all of the, I would say rewatch all of them because there are a lot of connections to little things that you would miss if you weren't like fresh on the Scream movies or hadn't watched them 100 times. Like I've watched them so many times that I was literally like, oh, that song was in number 1 and that piece was, like I was like connecting everything, and it was really, really good. Went back to like the traditional suspense. Like I feel like they lost that in the last couple. It turned into more of like the new genre horror movies, and this one was back to that like suspenseful, creepy, like whodunit, twists and turns type of thing. So it was worth it.
Hey, Taylor, thanks so much for coming on the show on such short notice. I know you got to go, but, always love having you on the show. Love hanging out with you, talking Jags football. And unfortunately, we don't have Urban Meyer to make fun of anymore. Since
I know. Bummer. I'm sure we'll have something else to make fun of next year.
All right, Taylor, take care. All right, we'll have
Thanks,
you on
guys.
again really soon. I appreciate it.
Thanks.
All right. That is the one and only Taylor Dahl. And Klim, I have to admit, I am heartbroken. I mean, we loved making fun of Urban Meyer with her, and we can't do it anymore. It's very depressing.
It's always fun when you can meet not only fans who it's good when you meet Jet fans and they can rip on the Jets. It's like, okay, good, this guy understands what we're talking about. Yeah. But then you meet other other people who are fans of bad teams like the Jaguars. She covers the Jaguars and she's like, Urban Meyer's a complete disaster. Like, what the hell are we doing? Like, usually, people when you meet them, you're like, oh, he's this, he's that. They tiptoe around it. Taylor was like, no, he sucks right from the beginning. Like when we talked to her back in August when they hired Urban, she was just like, I didn't like this at all. She was very blunt about how he was as a coach and everything like that.
But I also think
gotta love it.
Klim, I'll be very honest though too. I think a lot of fans of bad teams are just numb. They're just numb to the losing. Like you're a Lions fan and you pretty much go in with no expectations. I mean, you go in with the lowest of low expectations because, you've been burned so many times. It's like Jet fans too. I mean, we're not, we've had just some brutal seasons over the years, but I mean, you watch the game, you watch the teams and everything, and you watch, you hope, you look forward to the offseason because it's like the dawn of a new day when everybody is 0-0. And, everybody's winless and, they haven't lost either. So you get so excited for everything, and then you build it up. And, new coaching hires always get people excited because they look forward to seeing who the coordinators are going to be. But fans of losing teams have just become very numb. They become extremely numb to it, and it's not really much you can do at this point because it's like, oh yeah, great. I mean, listen, in the back of my mind, while I loved Robert Saleh, everybody was projecting him to win 8 games in his first year, and I'm like, hey, give me, why don't you take it back a little bit? I think Jet fans build their expectations up to these crescendos, and then it's a major letdown. Then they want to get rid of the whole fucking team. So, I mean, it's just. The Jaguars right now, I mean, Urban Meyer definitely set that franchise back. But the crazy thing about what the Urban Meyer hire is, and I thought about this a lot today, is that I think it set the possibility of a college coach coming to the NFL back by years. I don't think NFL teams are going to go down that well anymore. I really don't. I think that well is pretty much dried up. And now with Matt Rule pretty much on thin ice in Carolina, he's another guy that came in highly touted. Jet fans wanted him like crazy. I didn't know anything about him. So how could I possibly be excited for a coach I know nothing about? I don't follow college football like as crazy as other people do. And, he did a lot of great things at Baylor. And he did a lot of great things at Temple. But it's about translating that to the NFL. And that's where the college coaches hit a brick wall every time. It's easy to yell at a kid on scholarship. You know why? He's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
Where's he going? He's got a free ride to go to school. That means the coach can break his balls to the end of time. I have a good friend of mine who lives in Florida. He was a really good high school football player, and he was being recruited by a lot of teams. So he went on a recruiting, but the thing is, his family stressed academics. It wasn't like, okay, you're going to go to the NFL and whatever. So he, in the back of their mind, they wanted him to be a doctor or whatever. So one of the schools that was recruiting him for football was Duke.
Mm-hmm.
So Duke, plays in the ACC big time. Duke was not a very good football team, but it's just the fact of playing in the ACC, going up against Florida State, going up against Wake Forest, going up against all those teams. And he went on a recruiting trip, and he said the coach was a complete dick. The coach was just like, didn't care where he came from, didn't care how good he was at my high school. We weren't a very good football program to begin with. That was probably the best team we ever had that year. But and he didn't, and like the coach was just an asshole because once he gets you in the building, that's all you care about. Have you ever seen the movie The Program?
No.
Have you ever heard of it?
No.
Oh, Jesus Christ. I forget how fucking young you are. The Program is a movie that came out in the 90s. It's with James Caan. It's with the kid Omar Epps. Have you ever heard of Omar Epps?
Okay, yeah, I know Omar, yeah.
Basically what it is, it centers around a college football program. And they're recruiting the star running back, which is Omar Epps, to come to the school. And he shows up at the school for the recruiting trip, and the band is playing, and the cheerleaders are like cheering for him, and all these people are around him and everything, right? And then all of a sudden, he decides to sign a letter of intent to go to the school. The bus pulls up again, and the doors open, and it's just like a couple of the guys from the team saying hello. Nobody else is there. It's like, now that they've already got you, it's like, that's it. And then the coach breaks his balls, he tells him, he's like, don't you ever fumble this freaking ball ever again, and all that stuff. And that's what it's really all about. It's easy for college coaches, to berate young kids into, molding them into what they want them to be. It's a totally different tale to do that to a multi-million-dollar athlete. And that's why no matter how many times you try to recruit the big college coach to the NFL, more times than not, it never works. The only guy it's worked for over the past, 10 years is Harbaugh. Jim Harbaugh is the only guy that it's worked for. That's it.
I would say, yeah, Jim Harbaugh, Pete Carroll, and to an extent, Cliff Kingsbury, because they just got good this year.
Pete Carroll, though. Pete Carroll was an NFL coach before he went to college.
True.
He had NFL experience coaching the Jets and coaching the Patriots. Then he went to USC and became a superstar, and then that's how he got the job in Seattle.
True.
But most of those other guys, like Bobby Petrino, Urban Meyer, even Matt Rule. Matt Rule was an assistant in the NFL. I mean, he was never a head coach, but he was an offensive assistant, I think, or something like that. But, you look back on those guys, Steve Spurrier, Lane Kiffin. Remember how terrible Lane Kiffin was in Oakland?
Even look at Nick Saban's first run in the NFL.
Nick Saban was terrible coaching with
terrible. It's few and far. The bad hires from college outweigh the good hires.
And
like I said, like you said, like Jim Harbaugh, he's one of them. Cliff Kingsbury, to an extent, he's one of them. But I couldn't name you any really other good head coaches that came from the college rankings.
But that's why guys like Lincoln Riley, guys like Dabo Swinney, they're not going to come anywhere near the NFL because they see the way these guys, the NFL chews up these guys and spits them out. These guys are legends at their schools now.
Right.
Dabo Swinney is a legend. He's an icon in Clemson. He's never
not going anywhere, yeah.
He's never leaving Clemson. Lincoln Riley decided to go to USC rather than come to the NFL. He left Oklahoma and went to USC. They're smart. They know what they're doing. So it becomes a case of like, you're not going to go down that road. But, to be very honest, outside of like maybe a guy like Brian Daboll, I'm not really blown away by the head coaching candidates this year. I'm not going, I have to have this guy. Brian Daboll is probably the only guy I'd want because of what he's done with Josh Allen.
Yeah, and even, it's going to come up this year because it came up the past 3 years. Does Eric Bieniemy get a coaching job?
But he's not really being broadcasted as like it was loud last year. This year, not so much.
I think it's this year not so much because Patrick Mahomes did not have a very good year. Mm-hmm. If you look at it, he threw a ton of interceptions this year, and whether that's on Bieniemy or Mahomes or not, the Chiefs' offense did not look as good as it has the past couple of years.
Now, here's the thing I'm also going to tell you, too, because this came up again the other day after, certain guys got canned. And that is, look, I understand that they want, the NFL is doing everything in their power to get African Americans or minorities in general coaching chances. I really do. And I respect that and I applaud it. And I'm not saying that it can't happen. But here's the downside to it, Klim. They're getting opportunities, but they're failing.
Right.
They're not doing a good job as head coaches. And you go down outside of Mike Tomlin, who's I think the only black head coach in the league. Anthony Lynn got a shot with the Chargers, failed. Todd Bowles got a shot with the Jets, failed. I mean, I could go on and on with this subject. All right. Everybody starts pivoting towards why isn't Eric Bieniemy getting a chance and this and that. He's been interviewed by a lot of teams, and the only thing I can think of is there's something about him they don't like. Yeah. There's something about him, and all these teams are like, and all these teams that interviewed him are basically sitting there going, this guy doesn't seem like he knows what he's doing or whatever it is. I mean, who knows? But I'm tired of hearing about this. I'm tired of hearing about how African Americans aren't getting a shake as a head coach or African Americans are not getting a shake as an executive. The Detroit Lions hired a black executive to hire a head coach, and he hired a white guy.
Mm-hmm.
I want you to think long and hard about that. Dan Campbell did not get the job before this guy. This guy got the job first, and then Dan Campbell got the job in Detroit. So while I understand that, yes, you definitely want to see, black head coaches, Asian head coaches, whatever, they just haven't been very good. The track record has not been very good for them. Maybe Eric Bieniemy finally gets a chance. Maybe Eric Bieniemy would be great in a place like Jacksonville.
Right.
Low pressure, works for Trevor Lawrence, offensive guy. Maybe that's exactly what they need out there. I don't know. But it has become an incredibly stale argument about minority coaches not getting a fair shake. You know what? It's most likely never going to be a situation where there's going to be 17 black coaches and 15 white coaches. Most likely never. That being said, I think African Americans are getting opportunities. They're just not succeeding.
Yeah, like you mentioned.
If Todd Bowles gets another head coaching job and fails, what does that tell you right there?
It's not a good look.
It's not a good look.
It's not a good look. As great as a defensive coordinator Todd Bowles is, he might just not be able to do the head coach. And like you said, other than Mike Tomlin, he's the only one. I mean, granted, Brian Flores should be getting a head coaching job somewhere in the NFL.
Think about it like that. Okay, I'm glad you brought him up. All right. I know we have a few minutes before Jamie comes on. But for Brian Flores, do you think that there's something we're missing about him? Think about it like this. 2 out of the 3 seasons in Miami, you finished with a winning record.
Right.
Then why are you getting fired?
I mean, maybe it has to go with
really the general manager, or is this more of like a tug of war here between Flores and, and I mean, is Flores, there's got to be something. I don't buy that the Miami Dolphins would just fire the guy coming off 2 straight winning seasons.
Right.
So I have to ask myself, what are we missing about Brian Flores? Why does everybody think Brian Flores is Bill Parcells?
I mean, maybe it's to the fact that this is just coming off the top of my head that, we mentioned time and time again on this show that, the Dolphins don't really feel 100% with Tua as the quarterback. And maybe that has to do with Brian Flores really doesn't like Tua, but the GM's like, no, Tua's our guy. And maybe that's the reason why they started him last year over Fitzpatrick when Fitzpatrick was red hot. Maybe that's the case. We don't know. We don't work for the Jaguars. We don't work for the Dolphins. We don't have Dolphins insiders for us yet, unfortunately.
I mean, listen, what's that? Were you going to say something?
I was just going to say, but we don't know. I mean, but again, like a guy like Brian Flores, from what we saw.
Listen, I think Brian Flores will get a job. I don't think he's going to be on the sidelines this year. I think he'll definitely be a head coach of a team. I just don't know who that team is yet. A lot of people linked him to the Giants. Although now I think the Giants are pivoting towards Daboll to be. They're doing a second interview with Brian Daboll. So I think, and since the guy that took over as the GM was the assistant GM in Buffalo, it kind of seems like it's a match made in heaven, in a way. I'm pretty curious to see what they do with Daniel Jones if Brian Daboll is going to be the coach, but story for another time. But Flores right now is probably the only guy. I mean, Bowles. There's a rumor going around that Bowles is one of the front runners for Minnesota, which I think would be a terrible hire. I think it would be an absolutely terrible hire for Minnesota. But I mean, Minnesota should be leaning more towards an offensive guy when you have Kirk Cousins, Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, and Dalvin Cook on your offense. I mean, I think hiring Bowles is a terrible idea.
Well, we know it just from experience, but I mean that's besides the point.
So, but it's an interesting dilemma. Like, for example, with Jacksonville, now getting back to where we're going with the head coaching candidates, Jacksonville, to me, the reason why I'm not big on Leftwich, honest to God, is because how much of his success is related to Tom Brady?
Right.
Can he develop a quarterback? When you have a Hall of Fame quarterback on your roster, what is Byron Leftwich going to tell Tom Brady that isn't already known?
Yeah, first of all, when they were in the league together, Tom Brady was already yards better than Byron Leftwich ever was. Like, second, like, and exactly to your point, like, what is he going to teach Tom Brady?
Yeah. So that's where I question going full steam ahead on Byron Leftwich. Because I don't know. And the thing is this really where the Jaguars want to go right now? Do you want to go with not only your second-year quarterback who now has to listen to a rookie head coach who's just finding his way in the league?
Yeah, I wouldn't. I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head a week ago or 2 weeks ago, whenever we did our last show, that they should go with someone experienced. And I think Taylor wanted to try and find that happy medium of like an experienced head coach, yet like a
That's why honestly, I think Caldwell would be a good pick for them. I think Caldwell's a winning coach, man. The guy wins. I mean, has he gone to a Super Bowl? No. Has he gone to a championship game? Yes. I mean, he went with the Colts. But I think he's a pretty solid coach. I mean, and I think he's a guy that could be a good – I mean, his age is still a little bit of a concern. He's 67. But I think that he might be exactly the type of guy that Trevor Lawrence needs to maybe take the next step, or a guy like Doug Peterson, a guy who has a Super Bowl on his resume, who's won a Super Bowl. I mean, I don't know. Part of me thinks that just going with younger coaches is not the ideal way for Jacksonville.
No, definitely not. And Jamie is here.
There he is. Bring him through. There he is. Joining us as always, he is the co-host of the Billieve Podcast, and he can't hear me.
Can't hear us?
You want to try to jump back out and jump back in? Can you message him?
Give me a sec.
Oh, that sucks. I wish I could write something right now, but I can't.
I just messaged him. Hopefully he sees it.
I hear him. Oh, it's him. It's him.
Hold on.
Let's say ready. Let's wait for it. He's
Oh. Drum roll. Oh.
Now let's try. How about now? Still waiting. Hopefully.
Still nothing? Shit. All right.
Let's see if he jumps.
Hopefully he comes back. I'll edit that out when it comes to the podcast time, but damn.
Yeah, we've been having rough times with the feeds today. I don't know what's going on.
You know what? I think it's when new people come on to the show. Like, I get maybe it's because it's a different kind of streaming service. Because I think Taylor had the same problem too. Remember when we first got Taylor onto when we did StreamYard?
Yeah, I mean, you have it all the time, so I mean, it makes sense for you.
Yeah, no, I think it makes sense that ours is good because we do this all the time.
Yeah.
But I think for new people who come on the show, like Taylor and Jamie and whoever we have on in the future, like I think their mics get, if they don't have it like, for the one time, it gets messed up.
All right, so we're still having some difficulties with Jamie D'Amico. Hopefully, we'll have him on in a couple of minutes. Clem, just be on the lookout, okay?
Yeah, I got you.
So, I guess we'll quickly do some NFL playoff stuff while we're waiting for Jamie D'Amico. What can I say about Dallas that hasn't been said already? Okay. Listen, I know people have got to get off Dak Prescott's jock. I'm sorry. Like, I think he's just a stats guy, man. I mean, when you have an offense with CeeDee Lamb, Amari Cooper, Ezekiel Elliott, Dalton
Okay, wait, he's back. Let's try it again.
All right, let's pray to God this is working.
I'm sorry, guys.
There he is.
There we go.
The golden voice of this podcast, ladies and gentlemen. It's definitely not me. It's the one and only Jamie D'Amico, co-host of the Billieve Podcast. Jamie, this is a loaded question, but how you doing?
All right. So interesting you should ask that. Not even well enough to record my own podcast tonight, which I was supposed to do. But then when I get when I got the message from Klim, I'm like, well, it's my boys. I can I can make some time for them. And it's funny because I'm like, I don't know if I can get myself to do it. And I had a couple of people be like, well, don't you feel obligated to the fans and your audience? I'm like, no, I make no bones about who and what I am. I'm a fanboy who likes to hear himself bloviate. I'm not a journalist. I don't have journalistic integrity. Like nobody's going to miss me if I need to take a couple days to get my podcast out the door. Jesus, how am I doing today? Not good, Craig.
I said it was a loaded question.
Oh my God.
It's rhetorical. I mean, well, we really do appreciate you putting your podcast off for a day to hang out with us. So
I'm honestly happy to be here. I love being on the show with you guys. I just hope that my audio quality is all right. I had to.
You're perfect.
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
Yeah, it's fine now. I mean, I'm not really sure where to begin because Josh Allen had the game of his career. I mean, there's nothing more you could really say, and everything seemed to be clicking on every level for Buffalo's offense. It just seemed like this was more of a defensive letdown. I mean, I guess my question to you at this point is heading into next season, the Bills have the top defense in the league. I mean, where would you try to fix it, I guess, at this point? Because it really just came down to just seems like one bad game because, excuse me, they've been elite all season.
The Bills, for having the number one overall defense in both scoring and yardage, you would think that they were more dominant than they actually were this season. The Bills' back seven on defense is phenomenal. I mean, absolutely great. Even without Trey Davis-White, they were very, very good this season. But the front four, they're just not there. Right. You have Mario Addison and Jerry Hughes, who are both old. They're in their 30s, both in the last year of their contract. And the Bills have tried over the past couple of years to address the defensive end position, drafting in the second round A.J. Epinesa, drafting Greg Russo in the first round of this past year, and then Boogie Basham in the second round. Ahead of Creed Humphreys, I might add, who everybody was just begging for because people felt like the Bills needed a better interior offensive line. And those guys just have not shown up. I would say Rousseau has been a very good run defender, but the Bills don't get a pass rush on defense. So you have Ed Oliver, who kind of came into his own this year. You had a guy named Harrison Phillips, who's a defensive tackle, who was pretty good. But there's a couple things that they're missing, one of which is a pass rush. And the other thing is they don't have elite speed on defense. And you saw yesterday that when the track stars that are on the Kansas City team get the ball in their hands, they made the Bills defenders look like they were moving in slow motion. And I don't know who you take off the field to address that because the Bills have all-pro safeties. They have an all-pro cornerback. They have two very good linebackers, like who ends up on the bench as a result of that. And I don't have the answer to it at this point.
So do you think, like, when this offseason comes, do you think, like, addressing the pass rush and adding speed to that secondary is going to be something that the Bills are going to add? Because clearly, the Bills aren't going away, and neither are the Chiefs. This is going to be a matchup for years to come in the playoffs. So do you see them addressing potentially speed to try and cover a guy like Demarcus Robinson and Tyreek Hill?
I think you have to, because, to quote Ric Flair, to be the man, you got to beat the man. And you have to go through the Chiefs. The AFC goes through the Chiefs. I mean, there's just no other way of going about it. Even when they started off slowly, you sort of always had the feeling that they were still going to find a way to be there in the end. And lo and behold, here they are. So in case they, lay an egg next weekend, or perhaps Cincinnati plays out of their minds, they're going to the Super Bowl again. And at this point, Vegas already has them as the favorites.
I mean, how gut-wrenching was this loss yesterday? I mean, listen, I hate to bring up the past. I hate to bring up, like the 4 Super Bowls in a row that Buffalo lost. Now, 2 years in a row, you play Kansas City and, you lose. But more importantly, in your opinion, the big drama for today has been the fact that people believe the OT rules should change because of that one Kansas City drive. We had a guest on a little while ago we asked that question, so we're going to ask the same question to you. Where do you stand on the OT rules right now?
I don't have a strong opinion on it either way. The Bills didn't lose the game because of the OT rules. They lost the game because they couldn't get a defensive stop really at any point throughout the game. I think I probably like the college system a little bit better. I think that it's sort of ridiculous when you start seeing scores up into the 60s because the game just keeps going back and forth. So maybe that's, it's not perfect.
They'd probably still be playing right now with the college rules because it was just back and forth. That last 2 minutes was absolutely incredible. Like, you couldn't have asked for a more exciting. Clem and I mentioned it before you came on. Listening to the CBS announcers, Nance and Romo, like, they sounded like fanboys watching the game, and that's what made it even better. Like, that's what made it so much better. Oh, yeah. Like, when they lined up for that kick to go to overtime, Romo said, "I'm so nervous right now." Yeah, I mean, here's the thing, though. If you're the NFL, did you want that game to end? No. You could have kept more eyeballs That's a great
on that game, and you could have kept selling more advertising as a result of it.
Yeah, that's a great point. Absolutely.
Now, if it was a 6-6 tie and it went into overtime because nobody could score, that's a different story. But when you have a barn burner like that, if I'm the NFL, I don't want that to end. I want it to go until somebody dies on the field of exhaustion.
Yeah.
No, like, that was arguably one of the best games I've ever seen in my life, and it's already being dubbed as one of the greatest NFL games of all time. And like, I was just so happy I got to catch the last few minutes of it. But like, as a Jets fan, I'm like, I know I shouldn't be rooting for the Bills, but I was like, I want the Bills to win so badly right here because I even said it to Craig. I was like, out of players who are non-Jets, Josh Allen's probably my favorite player in the NFL.
Really?
And I felt so bad for you and for all Bills fans in general.
I appreciate that. Klim, right here, buddy, because I know we got you coming around a little bit. It's, the AFC East. You're supposed to hate all the teams in the AFC East, but I see you slowly coming around. You're like, I don't hate the Bills.
I really don't hate the Bills, man.
It's for me to hate the Bills. Like, they're a New York team at the end of the day. I mean, I don't hate them the much way I hate the Patriots or the Dolphins. I mean, but right. I have to admit, I was really impressed with how the Bills have just each year. McDermott is one of probably the most underrated coaches of all time because he is that good.
We got a first comment. Mike Laws, come on. How can you root for Buffalo?
I love Mike Laws.
Look, I mean, I can root for Buffalo. Like, easy. I don't want to see Patrick Mahomes in it anymore. Like, I'm sick and tired of seeing Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl. Like, get someone new in. And I was big hype for Josh Allen.
Yeah, and I think we can honestly say that with yesterday, he's now like a bona fide star.
Yeah.
Before he was an exciting player, he was a potential MVP, but Josh Allen on a big stage, on a game that had a very large audience. Josh Allen was every bit as good as Patrick Mahomes was. And, that gives you a lot to root for going forward as a Bills fan. But, at the same time, you say, well, what in the world do they have to do? Because this is one of the best Bills teams I've ever seen. And I was in high school all the way through the Super Bowl run. So I have very close recollections of that. This team is just as good as those teams, and it's almost like you sit here wondering, how could this team, as good of a season as well as they've been playing lately, how could they lose?
Yeah,
it doesn't seem, as a fan, it's like it just seems impossible that the season could be over. But they got a terrible draw going against the current dynasty of the NFL.
It was tough. It really was tough, and I felt, like I said, I felt so bad for you and all Bills fans and Bills Mafia and whatnot. I'm just like,
my brother-in-law is from Buffalo. He's a huge Buffalo Bills fan. Huge Bills fan. I haven't even reached out to him yet. I'm afraid to find out. But
really,
yeah. Jamie, one guy that I thought, at least from what I saw towards the end of the season and into the postseason, that really started to come into his own was Devin Singletary.
Yeah,
I definitely saw he was a hard-nosed runner. It just seemed like he kind of took his game to another level as the season progressed and into the postseason. Has he pretty much solidified the number one running back spot at this point? I know Zach Moss was part of the equation. I think he got hurt. But after that, I didn't really see much after Singletary. Has he pretty much solidified his spot as the number one running back on this team besides Josh Allen?
Yeah, it's besides Josh Allen, yeah. Absolutely, Singletary is. In fact, he got 100% of the snaps in the game yesterday. So Zach Moss didn't even make an appearance, and that lets you know.
That's funny you mentioned that because I thought he was hurt. Like I hadn't really followed too much Bills football at the end of the year, but I kept seeing Singletary getting the ball a lot and getting in the end zone more. And then I just didn't see Zach Moss very much. Where I felt like at the beginning of the year was a little different. It would seem like it was more of like almost like split. But Singletary definitely seemed to emerge as that number one back at the end of the season and into the postseason.
And there's a reason behind that, actually, and it comes down to X's and O's. The Bills have a very sort of mismatched offensive line when it comes to run blocking. You have a guy like Mitch Morse, who is a great center, but he's not strong at the point of attack on the run. So last season, the Bills put in a zone blocking scheme, which is decidedly not to Singletary's strength or a few of the guys on the offensive line. They drafted Zach Moss to run the zone rushing offense. He was very inconsistent, but as the year went on, the Bills kind of brought in a couple of new offensive linemen. They brought in Spencer Brown at right tackle to start, and then due to injury, they brought in Ryan Bates to start at left guard.
Right.
Well, because of the personnel that they had to switch over to a pulling system, like a pin and pull blocking system, which is really what they should have been doing all along anyway. But as soon as they implemented that, not only were they blocking as a unit much, much better, but that is also what Devin Singletary is really cut out for. Now, early in the season, the Bills running backs had averaged fewer yards before contact of anybody in the league. And in fact, last year, Devin Singletary was number 2 in the league in fewest yards before contact. Zach Moss was number 8 in the league. So, I mean, that's not very good. So everybody's thinking, well, the running backs must suck. No, somebody needs to probably lose their job for having the run blocking scheme in place.
I was going to say, we got another comment from Mike Laws. I want to drink Bills fans' tears. Oh,
I hate Mike Laws.
That's a typical AFC East fan right there. I guess
maybe this is a new platform. We have people that comment on our show now. We're moving up in the world.
That's freaking great, man.
Yeah, we're moving up in the world.
Yeah, there we go. But what was I just about to mention?
Mike
Oh
Law.
yeah, no, not Mike Laws. Craig mentioned the emergence of Devin Singletary. I'm going to talk about the emergence of easily the second star of the game behind Josh Allen, and that's Gabriel Davis. I mean, this man, woo! He had such a great game yesterday. I was like, I couldn't believe what I was watching.
Gabriel Davis.
Are you responsible for saying Gabriel Davis is better than Jerry Rice? Is that what you just did?
I mean, Jerry Rice didn't put up any numbers like that in the playoffs.
No,
I'm just saying
he never did.
I'm just saying that.
Gabriel Davis was a rookie last year, and I think he was out of like Central Florida, something like that. Gosh, I can't remember what school he was. But the book on him was he was a pretty good deep receiver, even though he didn't have blazing speed, but he had a decent combination of good hands, slightly larger, like 6 feet. But what we discovered late last season when he started getting on the field more was, well, this guy seems to have really good field awareness. Like he's really good working the sidelines and getting his feet in bounds. Excellent body control. And the thought was, well, they'll bring in another veteran as they did Emmanuel Sanders, but, he might develop someday. Well, he put Emmanuel Sanders on the bench by outplaying him. Mm-hmm. And I think a big part of what happened yesterday, I haven't watched the game again. I may never watch it again. I may never watch the coach's film. I may never watch football again, to be honest with you, after that.
Yeah, you might have to take a sabbatical because that's just one. I mean, that's a loss. You got to take a break from football just to like decompress. I mean, that's a tough one to swallow.
Right. But I think that there's a very good chance that Stephon Diggs was being double and even triple covered. Mm-hmm. I think that the Chiefs rolled the dice and said, we want somebody else to beat us. And Gabriel Davis said, I'll take it.
Yeah.
Another he put on the performances yesterday. It was
pretty sensational, to be honest. But another guy also that I thought took a big step for Buffalo this year. I think when we had you on before the season started, we were concerned about the tight end position. I think you brought that up at the very beginning of the season. And Dawson Knox really emerged as a very good pass catching tight end, gets into the end zone. I mean, is he become almost like not necessarily Allen's favorite target, but definitely, someone to rely on moving forward is like where they don't have to worry about the position anymore.
Interestingly, at the end of last season, the way they were using Dawson Knox, they had such little faith in him that they were only really using him as an outlet receiver. Mm-hmm. His rookie season, he actually dropped 20% of the passes that were thrown to him. Mm-hmm. And he halved that and dropped 10% last season, mm-hmm. but that still doesn't bode well for gaining confidence. And then this year, he really turned it on, and you could tell that the game slowed down for him mm-hmm. a bit. And he had a drop like first play of the game yesterday or second play of the Bills' possession. But he's a guy that is incredibly athletic. And if he can ever get his technique fully down, he doesn't have great technique as a blocker. He gets beat that way. But if he gets a little better at running his routes, he's going to be, I think, a very good receiver. And this was to be expected with him. He, in college, and I believe he went to Ole Miss, never was asked to be a receiver. He was only a blocker at that school. So when they picked him, it was because of his athletic upside. Mm-hmm. He started putting it together in his third year, which, the third year is the magic year for receivers.
Yeah. Right.
So, I was going to say, just to take a step away from, talk about the players, one of the big talks going around the NFL now is who's going to be the next head coach where, and to no surprise that Brian Daboll is being looked at as a head coach. So unfortunately, is he as good as gone from the Bills offense coordinator position?
Yeah, it looks like he's going to follow the Bills assistant general manager, Joe Schoen, to the Giants. Schoen took over as general manager of the Giants, and It was rumored that he was going to be a package deal with one of the Bills coordinators, whether it be Brian Daboll, the offensive coordinator, or Leslie Frazier, the defensive coordinator. And I would think that Brian Daboll is going to probably talk his way into that position. He apparently had a second interview, or has a second interview with the Giants coming up tomorrow. And he's the only candidate as of this point that they have announced to be speaking to a second time. So, the Giants, they'll be getting a guy who is a very creative play caller. He's a good play caller. And he's really known to be good at creating good relationships with the players. He's not the kind of coach that does the my way or the highway thing. He actually responds really well to input from players and other coaches, and he really roots for them. For example, Isaiah McKenzie, one of the Bills receivers, he had been their return man, had a couple of bad fumbles during the year, and they benched him. They deactivated him the following week and then really had him buried on the bench. And then a few weeks ago against the Patriots, he put up over 100 yards. He had like 8 receptions. He had the game of his career. And the first one to go over and like hug the guy and tell him how proud he was of Isaiah McKenzie was Brian Daboll, the guy who put him on the bench in the first place.
Right.
So, that tells you that he's not a person who's trying to validate his hunch that this guy needs to sit. It's like, okay, let's give him credit where it's due. And perhaps we do need to involve this guy in the offense more. So that was a change that he made after that point. I think that's a positive trait.
Piggybacking off Klim's question, if Daboll does indeed go to the Giants, do you think McDermott will replace him in-house, or do you think he'll look more outside the Buffalo Bills to maybe – I only say that more in-house because since Josh Allen knows this offense so well and he's used to this coaching staff, would it be a better idea to stay in-house with a guy that he trusts than a new offensive coordinator from outside of the organization that might try to tweak him, make things a little different for him? I don't think it would do much to his game, but maybe somebody he may not feel as comfortable with.
Well, I believe that they have a succession plan in place, and they did even before this season. The Bills have a quarterback coach, Ken Dorsey, former NFL player, former Miami Hurricane.
Hurricane, yeah, he's good.
Yeah.
Good in college.
The U, baby. They made him the passing game coordinator before last season, and I think that was their way of holding on to him, assuming that at some point Daboll was going to leave as head coach. So I think that the plan, because the Bills have been very into stability. Right. I think that they're probably going to take a look at him. Now there is, and more so than take a look at him, I think he's a shoo-in for the job. Now there was rumor floated today that perhaps Matt Rule out of Chicago, who's recently fired, might be a dark horse for the job because he and McDermott
Matt Nagy.
Matt Nagy, thank you.
All right. No, it's okay. Like we said, Matt Rule. I'm like, oh, Matt Rule got canned.
No, yeah, wrong Carolina guy.
Yeah. But like, do you expect Daboll, like, again, if he gets the job, like, you think he'll go right after the Buffalo Bills coaches to like become OC and DC, or do you think he'll if you could give me a couple of coaches that would probably go to the Giants for like an offensive coordinator or defensive coordinator, like who would you think possibly?
Well, they always try to take the people that they know with them. And, I'm sure that the Bills front office is going to be poached as well, which is never good. So I don't know who would necessarily follow him from the Bills staff because he has a ton of experience in the NFL. He coached for the Patriots for a number of years. He was the offensive coordinator at Alabama. He's been around a really long time. It's not like he came up through the Bills organization and only knows what he's seen in-house, sort of like the people that come up through the Patriots. So I don't know what it would look like if he does leave, I wouldn't be surprised if he tries to take Ken Dorsey with him. to be his offensive coordinator, because they've been working hand in hand. And I suppose it probably depends on their relationship versus the relationship that Ken Dorsey has with Sean McDermott. Leslie Frazier, they probably wouldn't even allow him to interview if it's for a defensive coordinator position. Probably say, no, can't do that. He's ours.
Yeah.
Now speaking of, we mentioned Brian Daboll leaving, because that's what the big rumor is with him leaving. Are there any rumors about Leslie Frazier leaving at all, or does he seem like he's going to stay with Buffalo?
He's had 3 interviews so far. He's interviewed with the Giants, the Bears, and the Dolphins. And there's some thought that he may also interview with the Raiders and the Texans. He's really highly respected in NFL circles. He is a guy who's considered to have a very calming presence. He runs a great defense. He's very highly respected by his peers and by the players. I wouldn't be surprised to see him get another chance as a defensive coordinator. Should that happen, I assume that the Bills will probably promote Eric Washington, their defensive line coach, to defensive coordinator. He's somebody else who also coached with McDermott in Carolina and took over as defensive coordinator after McDermott left. But, there could be a lot of turnover on the Bills non-roster when it comes to coaches and front office and scouting members. But it's sort of the double-edged sword of success, which is you can't keep all your players and you can't keep all your coaches and front office members when you're consistently successful. And the Bills have really, shown themselves to kind of be a blueprint to how to turn a franchise around quickly.
Now, as we pivot to the Bills offseason, who do you think, who's a free agent? Where do you see the Bills maybe targeting certain players? I mean, what's their cap situation going into this offseason? Who do you think could be back, and who do you think most likely will not be back?
Their cap situation, as of now, they're about $20 million under the cap, which is not a lot of room by today's NFL standards. Jerry Hughes is at the end of his contract. He's the longest tenured Bill, and I don't know what they'll do with him. They might bring him back on a 1-year deal because he's really the only person who consistently pressures the quarterback. Mario Addison is a longtime pro. They're probably going to let him go. Cole Beasley is under contract for another year, but if they let him go, they'll save $6 million. And his playing time dropped quite a bit this past season. I don't think he was ever healthy. I think that he had a broken rib at one point, or a rib injury, they called it. And those never really heal. If you're consistently being tackled.
And he had COVID.
What's that?
He had COVID, right?
He did have COVID too. He was, I believe he was.
Was that during the season, or was it middle of the season that he got it? Or
yeah, it was a little bit later in the season. I think he was asymptomatic,
right?
Which probably furthered his belief that COVID is not real and nobody should be vaccinated, which was probably an underrated storyline, because when the Bills were struggling through the middle of the season, I was wondering if it was because the locker room was divided. I mean, how do you lose to freaking Jacksonville when you're the Bills?
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
So it felt like something else was going on.
I was going to say, because by that logic, it's like, how did the Bengals lose to the Jets? I mean, technically, the Jets should be in the AFC Championship game if you look at it that way.
No.
By the transitive properties, you couldn't be more right.
Exactly. But, to even go off of, free agency, you guys, what I just looked up, you got the Bills are holding the 25th pick in the draft this year. I mean, I know it probably might be early for Bills fans to look at who to look at in the draft, but are there any names circling the Bills, like who they might want to draft at 25?
I'm not there yet, man. I know in a normal Bills season, which is, I guess, prior to Sean McDermott, usually by week 12, I was looking at the draft and getting brushed up on the players, but I've been a little too head down in this. But when it comes to positions, the interior offensive line, perhaps the interior defensive line is an area that needs to be addressed. I don't think they can spend any more draft assets on defensive end. just from a pure roster construction perspective, even though those guys haven't lived up to the hype. Cornerback depth is a need, and a sneaky need for the Bills is receiver, because you're probably
I was actually about to ask you that, because you said they may cut Beasley. I don't know if Sanders will be back next year. With Davis possibly being a number 2 next to Diggs, do you start to look at other receivers for like the slot or as like a 3 or a 4? Would that be a possibility? I meant to ask you that.
Yeah, I think that's entirely possible that they're going to bring in a couple more receivers, whether it be draft or free agent. Mm-hmm. I think they need to. They're a very pass-heavy offense. Mm-hmm. And Emmanuel Sanders really lost a lot of playing time toward the end of the season. He's been on 4 different teams in 4 years.
Yeah.
And he's 34 years old, which that's pretty old for a person at a speed position.
Very true. So, Jamie, my last question for you is, with everything going on and the fact that, one of the things I remember from your Twitter profile is you're a big live music guy. Have you been able to go to a live music venue since things sort of got back to normal?
I did sparingly get to a couple. I went to see a bluegrass show at a really cool venue here in DC called the Anthem. That was really all I did. But coming up in a few weeks, going to see St. Paul and the Broken Bones at a nice little theater.
Nice. I have my first concert in February, so I'm looking forward to it. But it's just because it's been, for me, I'm a big concert guy.
Who are you going to see?
I'm going to see the band. You ever heard of a band called Tool from the 90s?
I've heard of Tool. Give me a break.
Right. I'm just, honest to God, when I say to people I'm going to see Tool, everybody looks at me like I have 2 heads. Like, who are they? I'm like, who are they? I'm like, are you kidding me? They're like one of the best progressive rock bands ever in the world.
Yeah, like the whole new metal style wouldn't have even existed without them.
Yeah, except the only thing I hate about their shows is I love the band, but man, every song is like 9 minutes long. And
is it really?
Yeah, you got to sit through like a lot of instrumental stuff, but it's great because it's a lot of visuals. It's a lot of, they have a huge screen, so like you get into the show. So I'm very excited to go to my first concert in a few weeks. I'm actually really looking forward to it. And I remember you being a live music guy, so that was one of my. Wanted to make sure I asked you that question.
Man, it's really funny because I'm sitting here thinking I know I've gone to other shows and it's not coming to mind right now. And oh yes. Over the summer, I went to see my favorite cover band called Yacht Rock Review.
I've heard of them. They're huge on Long Island. They are big on Long Island.
I can see that.
Yeah, like they sold out a show here, like at a club on Long Island. There was like, and everybody was wearing the hats, like the little sailor hats.
Yeah.
It made me laugh. Like everybody in the audience was wearing a sailor hat. Like it was.
Yes, I know how that goes. I went to see them and I'm like, oh my God, I'm old. Look at these freaking like people that are about to break their hips, and now I'm one of them. God.
Oh.
Hey, and I've got a question for you, Klim.
Yes.
How are you surviving without your Tab Cola?
It's tough, man. Tab was my shit. I love
one of the funniest things that ever happened during one of our interviews with you.
Like when Tab decided like, oh yeah, we're gonna be done, and I'm like, come on, man. I love Tab. Tab was so good, man. I'm not surviving. No, I had to resort to things like Coke Zero, and I go to Pepsi every now and again. It's just.
Oh God! And Diet Mr. Pibb. Oh. I worked in a restaurant in college, and the way we would initiate new people, we would like line up shots of Mr. Pibb because it was so gross.
Honestly, Jamie, if you hadn't brought up Tab, I would have never remembered that until now.
Oh my God, Tab!
It's usually one of the best. Like when you saw the can of Tab, that was just hysterical.
Oh my God! It stopped me dead in my tracks.
It did. I remember I was sipping like, oh hey, yeah, whatever, and you were like, hold on a sec. Tab?
I didn't know they still sold it, and I'm like, there it is in front of me.
Because there was one day I must have been sitting in my kitchen, and my younger brother comes home. He's like, "You'll never guess what I got today." I'm like, "Oh, what you get? And he was like, Tab. I was like, Tab? They still make that? He was like, yeah, man, it's so good. And I like had it. I'm like, this is pretty good. I do like it. Like I like it a lot. So that was our like go-to soda in our house for like the longest time until they were like, yeah, Tab's not going to be a thing anymore. We were like, fuck.
Oh my God. It just occurred to me. You might be able to buy some on eBay still.
Yeah, for like $400 probably. Like, let me see. I'm going to look it up real quick. Like how much I could probably buy a Tab, a case of Tab for.
A case of Tab, man, because I know that there's a lot of like microbrews that are regional that don't distribute. You could buy a lot of them online, like Treehouse or Heady Topper.
Tab. Look, people are selling it on here. Tab soda 12-pack, $124.99.
That's only $10 a can. Might be worth it.
I mean, you love it. It's your favorite soda in the world. I mean,
no, it's my second favorite soda. My absolute favorite soda is Barg's Root Beer. That's my absolute favorite soda.
Barg's
Root Beer, yes.
Oh, okay.
That's my absolute. I will die to my grave with Barg's Root Beer.
It's like all the sugar in the world in root beer, and then no sugar in Tab.
Oh yeah,
yeah, that's a great point. I know this is a really dick move, but I'm going to write a letter to the Barks people and ask them to discontinue it, just as like a social experiment. Like, what happens to Klim?
Yeah, I like. Look, if you take away you take away Bargs, they already took away Tab. I'm like, fuck, I gotta go mainstream and go like Coke and Dr. Pepper, and I'm like, I don't want.
Oh, so you keep putting one foot in front of the other. That's good to hear. Anyway, guys, thank you for having me. I love coming on your show. I love hanging out with you guys.
Yeah, Jamie, we appreciate you coming on such short notice. And, I think you said you weren't feeling well, so I hope you feel better.
Yeah, lick my wounds, but I have no butt. I'm just going to lick my wounds for an indefinite period of time.
Anytime we get to have you on the show is always awesome for us. So we just look forward to having you on, and you're always our first call when we want to talk Buffalo football.
That's fantastic. You can always count on me.
All right. Take care of yourself. All right.
See you later, guys. Bye.
All right. See, it couldn't have been a show without Jamie dogging you for Tab.
Bro, I totally forgot. Like, he was the one who mentioned it. Like, when I did it, he was like, hold on. They still make Tab? I was like, what? Yeah. Like,
oh, that's the best. He's the best. That was the one and only Jamie D'Amico. Check out his podcast, the Billieve Podcast. It's definitely great stuff. Jamie's been such a good friend of ours. And, the funniest thing about Jamie was when I reached out to the Buffalo Bills SB Nation blog, I think it's called Bills Rumblings, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
I just happened to email them and ask them if they would be interested in coming on the show. And the guy was really cool. I forgot his name, but he just said, I can't, but I have somebody that probably could. And he gave me Jamie's info. And Jamie came on the show, and a friendship's been born ever since.
It's so funny. Like, we started out with the easy fan. Like, you knew Ike, and we kind of knew Jake from the beginning. And along this way, we've made our friends. Like, even you mentioned earlier, you want to try and potentially get Chrissy Freud on. Jamie, Taylor, all these people. It's just like you really like these are like friendships. Like Jamie literally tweeted, "Can't wait to go live with my brothers." Like these are friendships. Like we're gonna continue to talk about them because these are like they like Taylor and Jamie. They don't just cover the Bills, the Jaguars, and the Bears. Like they're avid fans of these teams too, which is what we love to see. Like we love to talk to avid fans of these football, baseball, NHL teams that we love talking about.
And one thing that's awesome about them too is they have such great insight on everything.
Yes,
they know. They back it up with stats, but they also formulate their own opinions, and it's awesome, But what also is really great and kind of shows you in a way where the show is going is that you called Taylor and she was able to come on the show on short notice. You got in touch with Jamie and he came on the show on short notice. And those are the types of things that I respect and I really, really appreciate more than anything from them because they are very busy people. And they're taking time out of their busy schedules to talk to us. And thanks you to Taylor Dahl, I'm going to go see Scream this weekend because if she didn't give it the approval, I probably wouldn't. I would have saved the money.
No, yeah, even to Taylor, like she was just like, hey, I'm really busy, but I can definitely, talk to you guys for a half hour. Like, And that was more than enough. We got more than enough out of Taylor in that half hour.
In and out, 30 minutes. It was perfect. Like, we, again, appreciate Taylor Dahl taking the time out of her busy night just to come hang out with us, just to talk about, Jags football, and all that stuff. Like, it always means the world to me and Klim when people take time out of their busy schedules to come hang out with us. So, we're not a huge podcast. We're not a huge show that's on sports radio, but we value our listeners. We value our guests. And, in a way you're doing something right when they come on your show multiple times.
And even to like if you want to take like a step further with like the local guys who we know, guys like we've had Anthony DeComo on the show. We've had Gordon Damer on the show. We've had
that was a great interview. Gordon Damer was a very fun interview. I really enjoyed having him on the show.
I really wish, because I was listening to it the other night because he does the late night show now, and this is when we do our podcast. I was like, damn, I really wish he didn't do the late night show anymore. That way we could have him on the show,
But didn't we find a way to get him on in the afternoon, and that's how we got him on? It was like
we got him on in the afternoon because he was doing the morning show. That's why. So I don't know what his sleep schedule might be different now that he's doing nights, but I don't know. I mean, I look, it never hurts to reach out to him, and I might just have to, but just to see if he'll come on. But Gordon was was a great show as well.
Yeah, we built, we're trying, Klim and I made a promise that in 2022 we would build, try to build new relationships with guests and everything, because there's so many people out there, whether they're running a blog, whether they're running, whether they're running a blog, whether they're running a podcast, whatever, they've got a story to tell about their teams. They've got a story to tell about the league. They got a story. And, those are the people we want to broadcast to.
Exactly. Like we've had super fans on. We've had my friend Steve, who's a Cowboys super fan. We've had Kim Moisa on, who's an Islanders super fan. Like we love talking to these fans because it's not only we get their opinion, we get their 2 cents on what it's really. Like we can have like the Jamies and the Ikes and the Jakes on. To get, because their hand is on the pulse. Like they're there.
But we have to do now. We got to call Creative Pro.
We got to call Creative Pro. Funny you mentioned Creative Pro because someone so this is a funny story. I'm on Instagram maybe I would say this is last Thursday maybe. I just get out of work. I just get into bed. It's like 1:00 in the morning, and I'm just scrolling and I get the notification. Oh, you got a new follower. Who followed me on Instagram but Bear Bronson?
Does he really?
Swear to God, out of the clear blue sky at 1 in the morning. I don't know what he was thinking about at 1 in the morning, but he was like, oh, I get Bear Bronson. I'm like, oh, this is probably like one of those fan accounts or anything. I go to it. I'm like, nope, this is the real Bear Bronson. I was holding off on like getting like the Creative guys because I wanted to wait till like after like the Royal Rumble and maybe see if the Pizzanos wanted to come on and do like a wrestling show or something like that. So I was waiting. It's all in here. I got plans. But I was waiting.
We got the Cap show coming up in a week from Sunday, man.
Exactly. We got the Cap show. We got the Royal Rumble. I was like, I want to like try and do like a big like wrestling show. It's like start off the road to WrestleMania. So.
All right. Well, I'm going to let you handle that. You can get, we can reach out to guys, we try to reach out to Jack Thomason. By the way, saw Spider-Man over the weekend.
So good. How good was it? So good.
Okay. It was very good. I just didn't think it was as amazing as everybody made it out to be.
Oh, you watch it, man.
Now my daughter,
such a good show.
My daughter like begged me to take her on Saturday. Like originally I was like, I really want to see Scream because I just want to see Scream. And my daughter like begged me to take her to see Spider-Man. So
all right, let me get you
$50 later after admission tickets and drinks and siphoned down the damn popcorn, right? We went to see it, and it was really good. I will not spoil it. I'm sure everybody's seen it anyway.
Okay, no, you could spoil it. It's been a month and a half. You could spoil it.
Whoever is watching this, if you have not seen Spider-Man, this is what I'm gonna. These are the spoilers. I would advise you to mute your now. And when I'm done, I will go like this. And
mute it now, and then even if you're listening to it, pause it, fast forward, whatever you want to do. But when Craig snaps his fingers, that's when we're done talking about Spider-Man with the spoilers.
Okay, Spider-Man. Very good movie. Really like the concept overall. I thought it was very cool that Tobey Maguire was in it and Andrew Garfield were in it. My daughter didn't really understand that part. I told her, I'll explain it on the walk home, because there was no way I was going to be able to explain it during the movie theater.
Right.
I thought it was a very cool concept, bringing back all the old villains like Dr. Octopus and the Green Goblin and Jamie Foxx's character and everything. So I thought that was pretty cool. And overall, the ending I thought it was a pretty good ending. Like with
Right.
how he, basically it all starts over, and he doesn't know MJ and everything like that, and so forth. Thought it was way too long. 2.5 hours is way too long for a movie. They got to stop this bullshit. I heard today when I was at work, because we have Sirius radio playing in the office when we're working.
Mm-hmm.
We saw when we went to see Spider-Man, they saw the preview for the Batman with Robert Pattinson. That movie's clocking in at close to 3 hours. You do not need to tell the story of Batman in 3 hours. Everybody knows the fucking story of Batman. Okay? His parents died in an alley, and that's how he became a vigilante killer. That's it. Vigilante superhero killer, whatever you want to call it. All right? It's been told so many times, you do not need to spend 2 hours and 47 minutes talking. Now, that being said, my daughter wants to go see it, so now I'm going to have to go see it. So, it was a pretty good movie. It kind of dragged in spots, and it was kind of predictable. I had a feeling that they were they were going to turn on him eventually and all that stuff, like turn on Spider-Man when he was trying to fix them. And
yeah, you knew that was going to happen though.
But overall, I thought it was a pretty good movie. I enjoyed it. I stayed for the credits, right, with Venom. Now, here's my question, and tell me if I'm right. When Venom disappears during the end credits, he's not Venom anymore, right?
I don't like. I would love to give you a good answer on this, because I
on the table on the bar.
Yeah, I don't really know. I've never seen the Venom movies, so I can't give you 100% an answer. But like, I think what Venom is, it's like something like inside of him. Like, I think I'm not 100% sure, but I think it was just like him leaving that at the bar. It was just like, oh hey, like leaving like a part of Venom there, like to spread, like.
Yeah.
That's what I'm assuming it is, because like I said, I've never seen the Venom movies. I have a very small understanding of what it actually is, but I think that's what it's leading up to. And the rumor after Spider-Man is that Tom Holland really doesn't want to do Spider-Man anymore, or he does. Like, it was really mixed reviews on what it does. But if you saw the end of the end credit scene for the last Venom movie, Let There Be Carnage, it shows like he got transported into the Marvel universe, and he sees Spider-Man on the screen. And again, spoilers. He sees Spider-Man on the screen. He's like, "Ooh, I want to go attack him." Like, and it's like, so you're obviously clearly setting up for something with Tom Holland and Venom. So whenever that would happen.
Yeah, these guys all say the same shit, and then they get offered $30 million to be Spider-Man, and they'll take it easily. So. But overall, it's a pretty good movie. Like, I really enjoyed it. Like, it was, again, a little too long for my taste, and like a little predictable in some spots. But overall, I thought it was a pretty good movie. I'm actually, believe it or not, I'm a big fan of Doctor Strange, which I'm actually surprised I am, because I thought that would be the Marvel movie I enjoyed the least. And I actually really enjoyed Doctor Strange.
It grew on me. Like, I love Benedict Cumberbatch. I think he's a fantastic actor. And the first time I watched Doctor Strange, I was like, not really for me. But I watched it again. I was like, okay. And then I watched, when it came to Infinity War and Endgame, I'm like, oh, Doctor Strange is a badass. And then when it came to the Spider-Man movie, I'm like, holy shit! Like, this is awesome. Like, I love Doctor Strange. Like, he's a good superhero. Like, I'm all about Doctor Strange.
Smart ass type of superhero. I'm surprised at how much I liked Doctor Strange, like the movie. I will also say that I sat down and watched the first few episodes of Hawkeye, and I have to admit, it's exactly what I expected, which is why I would have never made a show about Hawkeye.
Yeah, it doesn't get good until, like, I think there's 6 episodes. It doesn't get good to the last 2.
Okay, so I'm already on 4. I'm on to 5. So it's like I love Haley Steinfeld. She's hot, but it's just, again, like, he's just not an interesting superhero to me.
Like
I remember I sat down and watched it because it was the day that my daughter was on remote learning from school, so she had to sit home all day with a laptop, and all I had to do was just sit in the living room and watch television because just in case the laptop crapped out. So I decided to watch Hawkeye, and I was like, man, this show's got potential, but I just feel like it's not going to be as interesting. And this last episode I saw, I was like, see, like I'm kind of losing interest. Like,
what happened at the end of that last episode?
He fights, somebody attacks him. The girl goes to the deaf woman's place.
Yeah, Echo. Yeah.
Right, and he's like, well, you got to get out of there because she's attacking me, and the Haley Steinfeld character is like, no, that's bullshit. She's attacking me right now. And then when they pull the mask off, it's Black Widow's sister.
Yeah, okay.
And that's how.
So I was gonna say that's when it got good. I was like, that was like the first good thing that happened throughout the show, the whole show. Like, and
Right.
the next two episodes, like 5 and 6, are going to be very good episodes. I will say, but I remember I was like talking about it with a friend, and me and her was just like, where it wasn't good because I big Pisano fans. I listened to Hollywood Hogwash, and they were like, oh, Hawkeye's so good, this and that. I'm like, I didn't see it. Like, I wasn't a big fan. Although I will say I do want to see Captain Rogers the musical.
That was pretty funny though. I thought that was really funny.
Look, this isn't a big spoiler, but at the end of the end credit scenes after on episode 6, they show you like the full song of that.
Oh, really?
I Can Do This All Day. It's absolutely hilarious.
That was really, really funny. But overall,
I love that.
The show is just okay for me. It's not great. It's not bad, but it's not great.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, that's what I thought. I thought it was, of the 4 shows that they've done so far, I thought that was easily the worst one.
Yeah. All right. Before we get out of here, Klim, I want your predictions for the Royal Rumble.
Okay, well, that's two. I was speaking of the Royal Rumble. Before I get into my predictions, I wanted to say one thing about the WWE because it came out today that the WWE is pursuing Ronda to come back for the Rumble.
Oh yeah, because they're desperate right now.
They have nothing. But I was gonna say that could be a story for another time we could talk about. But I will give my final 4 for predictions for each Rumble. For the Women's Rumble, I will say the final 4 will be Alexa Bliss, Mickie James, Liv Morgan. No, was it Liv Morgan? Did I say Lita? And maybe Liv Morgan. That'll be my final.
I'm not going to do a final 4 because I honestly, the one person I want to win it will not win it, and that's Shotzi. I love Shotzi Blackheart.
She's not going to win it though.
I'm a huge Shotzi Blackheart fan. I want her to win it so bad, and I know she's not going to win it.
I will say though, I do think my winner. I will say I think it's going to be Lita.
You think it's going to be? Oh God,
I think Lita's going to win, and then she's going to
Charlotte Flair match at Mania. I don't want to do with that.
I think so because
Charlotte Flair becomes like a fucking legend killer. Who cares? Like, no.
Well, that's the thing. I think Lita, because Lita, like the promo Lita cut a week ago on SmackDown, it was a very good promo, and she was like, "Yeah, I'm all for another run at the title," and I'm like, "So am I. Give me Lita with the belt again. I don't care. Give me Trish Stratus with the belt. I really have no problems with any of them running it back again for a little bit."
Okay, I thought before she got hurt that Sasha Banks would win it.
Yeah, I think a lot of people did.
Now what I think is going to happen, I could see 2 people winning the Rumble. Bianca Belair or Liv Morgan. I don't think it's going to be Alexa Bliss. I don't think not yet.
I don't think Alexa Bliss either, but I think they'll push her to be in the final 4. But I can't see Liv getting another title shot. I mean, look, we just spent the last 3 to 4 months with Liv in the main card picture. And I absolutely think that Liv deserves the title. She's good on the mic. She has good skills.
The thing is, WWE has to be careful because what they're doing is that they're, but I mean, not that he cares, but they're not building superstars. You just keep doing the same rinse and repeat stuff, which is what killed you in the first place.
Yeah.
And AEW is getting better and better with their big fight feels to matches. You know, like when Moxley went through the crowd, and who was waiting there was Bryan Danielson.
Yeah,
now you're setting up Bryan Danielson Mox feud. I mean, that's the shit that people want to see. WWE is not giving the people what they want to see. That's why their attendance sucks.
You know, and that's why, to go back what I said about Ronda, you know, it makes perfect sense for Ronda to come back, because you've had Becky just steamroll her way through the women's division since coming back at SummerSlam.
Mm.
You know, so who's really there for Becky Lynch to beat? And the only person left is Ronda, and Ronda versus Becky at Mania is the match to watch. I think everyone would be highly invested into that match. The storyline writes itself, obviously, from 3 years ago. So it would be a perfect scenario for Ronda versus Becky at Mania. And Ronda doesn't even need to win the Rumble for that to happen. And then you have Ronda at least win the Rumble. I mean, not win the Rumble, win the title, you know, against it. Or I texted my buddies this, because we were talking about this all day, that the only other credible person who could possibly be Becky is Io Shirai. That's it. That's really it.
Io Shirai. Actually, one other thing I'll note about this past Saturday was the GCW event at the Hammerstein Ballroom. Dude, Matt Cardona's awesome.
Bro,
I love everything about Matt Cardona. I'm a huge Matt Cardona fan.
He's arguably bigger now than he was when he was in the WWE.
And not for nothing, I mean, you and I have knocked Chelsea Green in the past as being kind of like, you know, we just didn't really think she was anything special. She takes some major bumps on the indie circuit, man. Did you see freaking Joey Janela powerbomber or a pile driver through I think on a table or something like that?
I saw that. She had that title shot on, or the number one contender match on Impact not too long ago, where they would, I don't know when they climbed on the ropes. I don't know what that match is called.
Ultimate X.
Yes, she was in that match too, and she was taking some crazy bumps there as well.
So no, there was definitely a good. I mean, I didn't see the show. I didn't go to the show. I have a friend who actually went to the show, but it was pretty cool. Like it was like Cardona's amazing. Like I am so impressed with it. I'm like so happy that he's kind of shed that Long Island Ice Z gimmick, and he's just a fucking badass on the indie circuit. Like
like I said, he's probably better now than he was when he was Zack Ryder in WWE.
And then one minor note, so I called the hockey game yesterday for the PAL Junior Islanders.
Mm-hmm.
You know, listen, they're a bunch of great kids. They're not a very good hockey team. So they were playing this team, the Philadelphia Hockey Club, yesterday, and they had a guy with the best name ever.
What's his name?
Right? Swear to God, this was his name. For all you cereal fans out there who love breakfast cereal, this guy's name was Franklin Berry.
Oh, like Frankenberry.
Yes. And I made a note, and I commented on it during the game last night. I said, with the guy with probably the best name on this roster, for all you cereal fans out there, Franklin Berry, and the freaking camera guy lost it. Cracking up, like, because he like picked up on it right away. And I was like, I'm going to have fun with this. When I'm calling a game, I'm going to have fun. I mean, and like, guy had the best name ever. And I must have called him Franklin Berry like 15 times during the game.
Oh, that's fucking great.
Like, I must have called him. Like, I every time he touched the puck, I was like, oh, he passes it. And here comes Franklin Berry. And I couldn't stop calling him that. I think it's the best nickname. It's the best name ever for a hockey player, or just any name. When I saw that, I was like, I hope that kid is playing Sunday. I'm going to be so excited that kid's playing. And sure as shit, he was in the lineup. And he's actually played a lot of minutes. He's actually a pretty good defenseman for them, too.
No, that's the one thing, you know, even when I was, you know, calling games at LIU, like, you got to learn to have fun with some of these, like, play-by-play and, like, broadcasts, because it's real easy to say, oh, it's him going back and forth, blah, blah, blah. If you make it, like, a little bit fun, like you said, like, Frank, probably the best name out there, for all you cereal fans, Franklin Berry, like shit like that. It's like, oh, I want to listen to this guy more, you know? It's shit like that. Like, I would always say like just like dumb shit. Like, oh, I was like, they opened a hole that a semi truck can drive through, or this dude's as big as a refrigerator. Like, you say little shit like that. It's like people like, oh, I want to listen more to this guy now.
Well, last week was funny. I called a game last Saturday, and these two teams, like the Junior Islanders, and they were playing this team called the Twin City Thunder. And I had read that I always, when I prepare for my games, I always look at the game before to see like who scored so I can build on that when I'm talking about the notes of the game. And then I also do other notes, like I do penalty killing, power play. I like to do, I research, every goalie on the roster, like where they, what their last game was. So I could say, oh yeah, starting in net tonight is Chris Klim. He's coming off a win in his last start, last week against so-and-so, and everything.
Right.
So I was looking at the game before because they had a back-to-back. And the first game ended like with 8 seconds left. The Junior Islanders were losing, and the Twin City Thunder player got called for slashing with 8 seconds left in the game.
Ooh.
Right? So the Junior Islander players got kind of pissed, and it turned into like a freaking brawl. Right? So they had like game misconducts. Fast forward to Saturday's game, the game starts getting out of hand, and the Junior Islander players were kind of pissed off that they weren't getting the calls. Klim, in the last freaking 10 minutes of the game, there was a total of 8 game misconducts.
Jesus Christ.
And I mean, like, they were fighting every 2 seconds. It got so bad. The referee, I've never seen this in any hockey game ever. Doesn't matter, NHL, junior hockey. I've never even seen it in roller hockey. Okay? The referee let the clock run out because he thought they were going to freaking kill each other. He just let they weren't going to come back. The Junior Islanders were going to lose the game regardless. They were shut out 3-0. It was like 45 seconds left. He lets the clock run down to 0 because he didn't want the playing one. They were going to they were just fighting. Jesus. Everything was shoving, punching him in the face and everything. One of my calls actually made Twitter.
Oh, really?
Yeah, made Twitter. If you follow the USPHL site, but you have to go back to a week ago. You have to go back to a week ago. Go back to what's the 24th? So it was the 15th. If you go back to January 15th, you'll see something that says, shutout Saturday, like Brett told me, and you'll hear me. It's not a great call. There were better calls, but for some reason they picked that one. Mm-hmm. But it was still pretty cool to hear my thing on Twitter. It was pretty awesome. So, but it's definitely a lot of fun. I'll be back doing it again Saturday afternoon. They're playing the Connecticut Junior Rangers.
All right.
But all right, on that note, that is going to do it for this week's episode of the Moffett on the Mic show.
Question. I just want to look. I just want to, before we get out of here, I just want to, I like to, I don't really use this platform to like preach stuff, but I figured, with what just happened, this past weekend with the cops, passing away in New York, I figured, pay a little bit of respect to them. They were brutally shot in the line of duty, and unfortunately they lost their lives this past weekend. So I just wanted to give my respects to them and their families and the NYPD.
Same here. Listen, yeah. I have a close friend. One of my daughter's best friends, her father is a retired police officer. Mm-hmm. We forget a lot of times that every day that they put on their uniform, they're risking their lives for us. They're protecting us. They're trying to protect us on a daily basis. So don't be that guy that mouths off to a cop when he pulls you over to give you a ticket because he's just doing his job.
Right.
Okay. We always respect the boys in blue on this show, and I commend them for the job they do every day. I commend them for putting their lives on the line every day. This kid was 22 years old. 22 years old. He just became a husband, and he's a father. Okay? It's heartbreaking. It's absolutely, absolutely heartbreaking. The one thing I don't like is that I don't like that people all of a sudden get the itch to start, complaining about everything going on in the world, almost like using this poor guy's death as like a reason to go on and just talk a lot of shit about everything going on in the world. That's not what it's for. You can pay your respects the right way, show how much you mean, what this guy did for, he wasn't on the force for very long. And unfortunately, that's the sad part about, for these guys who are just breaking into the police force. They're going to wind up getting in the crappy neighborhoods because that's the union. Those are unions.
Yeah.
That's the sad part. You're going to risk their lives every day. And it's sad. It's very depressing. And, again, say what you want, whatever your opinion is about the police and everything. And, Klim and I both agree that there are so many great cops out there who go to work every day, who put their lives on the line for people like me and him, who just want to get home to their wife and their girlfriend or their, parents, whoever it is. They just want to get through the night without getting shot at, getting attacked, and everything. Unfortunately, we live in a country nowadays that it's just, you have bad seeds. Nothing you can do about it. Unfortunately, there's just nothing we can do about it. No laws are going to change. You're not going to be able to revolutionize the world to it. Unfortunately, this is what police officers sign up for. I could never do that job. Like, I don't think I could ever do that job. And that's why I have so much more respect for them.
Mm-hmm.
Because every day they go out and they put their lives on the line for people like me and you. And I'm very grateful to the police, to police officers. I will never talk down to a police officer. I will never. It's, my brother-in-law is a cop in Suffolk County. And there are plenty of nights I worry about him.
Yeah.
I don't see him very often. I don't talk to him very often, but it doesn't mean I don't think about him. That I'll make sure that he's home safe to his wife and he has a newborn son. I mean, you're right. It's just a terrible, terrible. Our thoughts and prayers go out to their families. And, I have a good friend whose husband just retired from the police force.
Mm-hmm.
He just retired. He put in his 20 and he's done. And she put something on Facebook like, my husband is retired, but it's still gut wrenching nonetheless. When I see stories like this, it makes me just very sad. And, I pray to God that my husband survived, pretty much said, like, pray to God that, nothing ever happened to my husband. But man, I feel it's terrible hearing stories about this, happening all the time.
Yeah, it's like, as a first responder myself, I'm not a cop or anything like that. I mean, I'm in the process of potentially becoming one, but that's for a different thing. But like, I'm a first responder, and things, when I hear shit like this, like, it breaks my heart, because it's like, this could have easily been one of my friends that I know who are cops, or this could have been, if it was an even fucked up situation, this could have been me if I was going to go put out a fire, or me on an EMS call. Like, it's hearing this kind of stuff. It really is heartbreaking. And I really, do respect the NYPD, because that is probably one of the hardest jobs in the world, and they don't even get paid a lot to do it, and
no, it takes a long time for them to get to where they get, because they start out making absolutely nothing.
Exactly. And like you said, like, our thoughts and prayers go out to them, their families, and the NYPD itself, because
where I draw the line is, and like, this has nothing to do with the police in general. It's when you get these random schmucks on Facebook who just now all of a sudden want to start, they use that as a platform to bitch and complain about bail reform laws, or bitch and complain about this, and bitch and complain about that.
Yeah.
A life was lost, and that should be the most important thing on your mind. Not waxing poetic on Facebook about, oh, this freaking country and, and everything like that. Because you're just using that guy as a springboard for your bullshit agenda.
Well, yeah, you're going to get, and that the fucked up thing is, too, you're always going to get that.
Honestly, I fucking hate social media because of that, because I'm sick and tired of people on social media now just, like, we really give a shit about their political opinions. I don't care what your political opinion is. Like, what's so funny now? Like, you met Matt, right? From my old show. That's all Matt is now. Matt is just on Facebook every fucking 30 minutes, whining and complaining about everything. I'm so sick of listening to it.
Like, and like I said, the fucked up thing is, too, whenever a story like this comes out, whether it's a cop dying or an innocent man dying, there's always going to be people to throw out their bullshit agendas.
Yeah.
If you actually fucking cared. Like, let's get real for a second. Like,
let's remember this young man as a guy who went out there every day trying to provide for his wife and his his baby and everything. He just went out there to protect people like me and you from the dickheads of the world. And that's how we remember that guy, as a true soldier, as a guy who just, he wanted to be a police officer and everything, and that's what it was all about. And unfortunately, some asshole shot him and killed him. And that guy deserves to be in prison for the rest of his life. But we can't, we shouldn't be using that as a springboard for something else.
No, you're absolutely right.
It should just be remembering this man, this young man, for putting his life on the line every night. And that's how I will always remember him.
Yes.
Not about fucking bail reform laws or whatever. We don't know anything about that shit. So we all have opinions about that. That's fine. But, it's a very, very depressing story. And you hate to see shit like that. There was a cop, I think wasn't there a story like last week or something, or 2 weeks ago, a cop was kind of dozed off in his car and somebody shot him point blank and killed him?
I don't remember that story, but I wouldn't be surprised if that's ever happened, because.
And there's just a lot of scumbags, and there's a lot of scumbags in this world, man. There's a lot of scumbags. They're all out there. There's nothing, they're not going away, because, when you kill a bunch of them or you get rid of a bunch of them, more are just going to pop up again. It's how this world works, unfortunately. There's nothing we can do about it. But all we can really do is just admire and just remember this, this police officer and the other guy who's fighting for his life, from whatever, from what I gather. I haven't really heard much lately, but I think he's still fighting for his life right now. You just remember them for what they were. And that's guys who were just out there every night protecting people like us. And that's how we should remember those guys. So rest in peace. Our thoughts and prayers do go out to their families, to all the police officers, all to the boys in blue. Klim and I have the craziest amount of respect for what you do every day. And, without them, there's just nothing but chaos.
Right.
And that's how we have to remember it. So on that note, that will do it for the Moffett on the Mic show, Klim. I think that was a great thing you just did right there, just to kind of point that out. So I really appreciate that. Special thank you, as always, to two of our favorite guests, Taylor Dahl. Check out the Helmets and Heels show Tuesday, 6 to 8 on 1010XL Jacksonville Radio. And, of course, the one and only, the golden voice, besides me and Klim. And that is, of course, the one and only Jamie D'Amico. Check out his podcast, the Billieve Podcast, available, I believe, where podcasts are available. And that's it. So, Klim, thank you for holding it down like you normally do. Are we back next week?
Yes, we are.
Okay. So we'll be back next week with an all-new show, hopefully some more guests, as we'll be looking forward to talking AFC Championship game, NFC Championship game, and all that great stuff. On behalf of Klim, this is Craig. This is the Moffett on the Mic show. Follow the show on Instagram at Moff on the Mic. Follow the show on my Facebook page. Follow Klim and the A1 Sports Network on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. You can also subscribe to our show, courtesy of Apple Podcasts. Like and comment and leave us a 5-star review, because it makes us feel oh so special at the end of the day. Everybody, wherever you are, stay safe. Have a great rest of the week. Enjoy the games on the weekend. Klim and I are back next week with an all-new episode. Have a great week, everybody. Take care of yourselves.